Chapter 137. That's right. His chi was not the normal green color. It looks like for some reason, he was able to use the power of an ultimate connate stage adept to defeat me. Very quickly, Suemo realized. The youth was not really an ultimate connate stage adept, but for some reason, he was able to use the power of an ultimate connate stage adept. His actual level of practice was only great consummation of the chi gathering. Even so, when he thought of that moment of hopelessness when he was on the brink of death, he did not dare to have any thoughts of going against the youth again. No matter what the youth's reason was for being able to use that power, he did not dare to take the risk of provoking the youth again. The youth's decisiveness in casually killing the emperor of Yunyang country, Jiang Tianqian, made Suemo realize that the youth was not a merciful person. The reason the youth had spared his life was most likely because he felt that he had other uses for him. It looks like what he obtained was not an ordinary primal core adept's fortuitous encounter. Suemo thought to himself. However, even as he thought this, Suemo did not dare to have any thoughts of obtaining the youth's primal core adept's fortuitous encounter, because he knew that if he attacked the youth again, the youth would not spare his life. If he were the youth, and someone repeatedly offended him, he would not spare the life of the youth. Suemo was truly afraid. He had been practicing for more than 60 years, and if he were to die here today, everything would be for naught. Did he make his own wound-healing elixir? Looking at the small medicine bottle in his hand, Suemo's eyes were filled with disdain. Even if it was a wound-healing elixir left behind by a primal core adept, he did not think it would be better than his own, let alone one that the youth had made himself. I want to see how good a wound-healing elixir he can make. Even if the effects are poor, it doesn't matter, I have my own wound-healing elixir with me. As he thought this, Suemo uncorked the small medicine bottle in his hand and poured the wound-healing elixir into his mouth and swallowed it. However, a moment later, the disdain in the depths of his eyes disappeared and was replaced by waves of disbelief. The effects of this wound-healing elixir are so strong? The effects of the wound-healing powder can be this strong? I've always thought that the wound-healing powder that I concocted was already the peak of the wound-healing powder's efficacy. I didn't expect that there would be such a powerful wound-healing powder in this world. Now, Suemo was truly shocked. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that there would be such an effective wound-healing powder in this world. The efficacy of this medicine was twice as strong as the wound-healing powder that he had formulated, which he believed to be the best in the world. Based on my previous knowledge, this level of efficacy only exists in the healing elixirs produced by alchemists of the primal core stage and above using the Samadhi true fire. I did not expect that the wound-healing elixir could achieve this level of efficacy. In front of the effects of the wound-healing elixir that he had just consumed, Suemo felt that the wound-healing elixirs that he carried around with him were no different from trash. It had to be said that the wound-healing elixir that Zhou Donghuang had given Suemo was indeed very potent. In just a quarter of an hour, Suemo struggled to sit up. 2 hours later, he could move freely. Master, Suemo awaits your arrival at the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Before leaving, Suemo stood respectfully in front of the largest master's room in the courtyard and spoke respectfully to the person inside. Suemo only turned to leave when he heard a faint reply from inside. At the same time, a bitter smile appeared on his face. Although he regretted following the emperor of Yunyang country, Jiang Tianqian, to provoke such a troublemaker and be forced to acknowledge him as his master, but once he thought of Jiang Tianqian's fate, he felt relieved. At least, he was still alive. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When Suemo left, he did not go through the main door. In a flash, his chi flowed through his body, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared behind the walls. After the courtyard had completely regained its peace for a long time, the servant girls who had been standing guard outside the courtyard finally dared to push open the door and enter. When they saw the body of the emperor of Yunyang country, Jiang Tianqian, they were already used to it, because in the past few months, 2 people had died in and around this courtyard. But when Jiang Tianqian's body was carried out of the courtyard, and the innkeeper of Chuxiu Inn invited the commander of the Chu Royal City Guard, Xuemeng, over, his expression changed completely when he saw Jiang Tianqian's body. His pupils constricted rapidly. "Don't let anyone touch him. I'll get His Royal Highness here." Xuemeng left the bewildered innkeeper and rushed out of Chuxiu Inn. As he rushed towards the Chu royal household, his heart was still beating rapidly. My God! That youth had actually killed the emperor of Yunyang country? Although Xuemeng had only seen the emperor of Yunyang country once with the Chu king, that one time was enough for him to remember what he looked like. The man in the dragon robe who had died in the courtyard was the emperor of Yunyang country that he had seen before, Jiang Tianqian. Your Majesty! When the Chu king, Xiang Xiong, followed Xuemeng to Chuxiu Inn and saw Jiang Tianqian's body, he could not help but cry out in shock. Your Majesty? Instantly, the innkeeper of Chuxiu Inn was dumbfounded. Although he had already seen that the man lying on the ground was wearing a dragon robe embroidered with a 5-clawed golden dragon, and he knew that this was the exclusive uniform of the emperor of Yunyang country. However, he did not dare to link it to the emperor of the country of Yunyang. That emperor was high and mighty. How could he have died in Chuxiu Inn for no reason? So he had only thought that the other party was deliberately wearing the dragon robe to scare people. Only now, when the Chu king personally confirmed it, did he realize this person was not deliberately wearing the dragon robe to scare people, but was the real emperor of Yunyang country. That youth! He is going against the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The innkeeper of Chuxiu Inn was also an elder of the Chu royal household. When he realized that the youth had killed the emperor of Yunyang country, his first thought was that the youth had gotten into big trouble. Yunyang country was under the protection of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and the one who controlled Yunyang country was the Jiang family of the imperial court of Yunyang country. As the head of the Jiang family, the current emperor of Yunyang country was naturally under the protection of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Not just the current emperor of Yunyang country, but the emperors of the 16 countries of the East Valley were also under the protection of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. In the past, there had been people who had killed the emperors of other countries, and some of them had been foreign Khanate adepts. But those people, without exception, had all been killed by the adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Over time, under the protection of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the 16 countries of the East Valley no longer had any Khanate adepts who wanted to replace the royal family of any country and control that country. This was because the 16 countries of the East Valley were under the protection of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. And the Valley of the Medicine Masters was a powerful sect above the 16 countries of the East Valley. The sect had as many Khanate adepts as there were clouds in the sky, and they dominated the area. A large area around the 16 countries of the East Valley was basically considered by the Valley of the Medicine Masters as their own territory. Who else does he not dare to kill? After Xiang Xiong recovered, he smiled bitterly and looked at the innkeeper of Chuxiu Inn, asking, "Only His Majesty went to cause trouble for that youth alone?" There was also a huge white crane. The innkeeper of Chuxiu Inn said, "Take me to see it." Very quickly, Xiang Xiong saw the white crane that the innkeeper of Chuxiu Inn had mentioned. More accurately, it was the white crane's corpse. This is a silver-crowned crane? Although it was the first time that Xiang Xiong had seen this huge white crane, he had heard that the Valley of the Medicine Masters had a Khanate stage demon called the Silver-Crowned Crane. Your Highness, this can't be the Khanate stage silver-crowned crane of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, right? Xuemeng, who was standing to one side, could not help but swallow hard when he heard Xiang Xiong's words and asked with difficulty. Most likely. Xiang Xiong smiled bitterly. Given His Majesty's cautiousness after learning that the retired emperor, who was at the Khanate stage, had been killed by that youth, he would not have come alone. He must have gone to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to ask for help. Now it seems that the Khanate stage silver-crowned crane of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was the help he had asked for. However, he probably never imagined that even this silver-crowned crane would not be a match for that youth and would die at his hands. This Khanate stage demon had already reached the Khanate stage 20 years ago, and even though it has not yet reached the middle Khanate stage, its power is not something that the retired emperor, who had only reached the Khanate stage a few years ago, can compare to. At this point, Xiang Xiong drew in a cold breath. As far as I know, this silver-crowned crane was the mount of the valley head of the Medicine Masters. Now that the silver-crowned crane is dead, the valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters must be furious. The wrath of that late Khanate stage adept is even more terrifying than the wrath of the Emperor in the 16 countries of the East Valley. That youth has really kicked an iron plate this time. As he muttered to himself, Xiang Xiong shook his head, and a look of pity appeared in his eyes. I've also heard that this Khanate stage silver-crowned crane, in the eyes of the valley head of the Medicine Masters, is no different from a close friend. A look of pity also appeared in Xuemeng's eyes. Now, whether it was Xiang Xiong or Xuemeng, they both felt that the youth named Zhou Donghuang was in deep trouble. They were both pitying each other's impending doom. Your Highness, what should our next step be? Should we send someone directly to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to report this, or should we send someone to report to the Imperial Court and let the Imperial Court report to the Valley themselves? Xuemeng asked. Commander Xue, personally make a trip to the Imperial City and report this to the Imperial Court. It is best to inform the Imperial Court of this matter as soon as possible. Xiang Xiong said gravely. Otherwise, the Imperial Court will definitely blame the Chu royal family. Yes, Your Highness, Xuemeng replied and left. The legend created by this youth, who has the power to take on an entire country, I'm afraid it will soon be completely destroyed. After Xuemeng left, Xiang Xiong's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. End of this chapter. Chapter 138. The climate of Ziyun was very similar to that of Earth. The location of the 16 countries of the East Valley was similar to that of Asia on Earth. At the end of November 1229 of the Ziyun era, the weather had turned cold. Chu Xiu in the courtyard of the third room. Aunt Lan, are you really not going to the Valley of the Medicine Masters with Big Brother Zhou? A young girl of about 16 or 17 wearing a rose-red mink coat sat at the stone table and asked the beautiful woman sitting opposite her. The beautiful woman was wearing a silver mink coat, looking elegant and serene. Yes. The beautiful woman nodded in response to the young girl's question. The country of Yunyang and the 16 countries of the East Valley are only the starting points of that child, Donghuang. The path that that child will take is not limited to the 16 countries of the East Valley. I don't want to follow him and be a burden to him. Besides, in this past year, I have found that I am still not used to being in other places. Compared to the Chu royal city, or even the prefecture capital of Yunfeng Prefecture, I still prefer Qingshan town. As she spoke, a smile appeared on the beautiful woman's face, and her eyes were filled with nostalgia. After being away for so long, Aunt Lien must miss me very much. When she mentioned Auntie Lien, the beautiful woman's autumn eyes promptly became as gentle as water. This was the first time in her life that she had been away from the old woman who had raised her for so long. She had personally witnessed the old woman's transformation from a middle-aged woman to her current appearance. He at this time, a little girl of about 8 or 9 years old, who was also wearing a mink coat, ran over and sat beside the beautiful woman. Mother, if you want to go back to Qingshan town, Xiaolu will go with you. All right. Hearing the young girl's words, the beautiful woman smiled and agreed, secretly relieved. After all, she could decide the path she wanted to take, but she could not force others to follow her path. The young girl beside her had an imperceptible look of disappointment in her eyes. She looked at the beautiful woman and said with a smile, "Aunt Lon, you don't mind if I go back with you, right? You don't want to be a burden to Big Brother Zhou, and neither do I." The three beauties around the table were Lin Lon, Yang Zishi, and Yun Lu. They were discussing their return to Qingshan town. The three women did not know that when they were discussing, their voices were clearly heard by Ah Fu, who had just walked out of his room, even though they were separated by two walls. Ah Fu's room was right next to the courtyard of the third guest room. "That's right. If I were to follow the young master to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, wouldn't I be a burden to him? I'd better return to Qingshan town with Madame and Miss Xiaolu." Although Fu really wanted to continue following Zhou Donghuang, when he thought about the difference in power between him and his young master, he dismissed the idea of going to Qingshan town with him. After Fu gave up on the idea, he went to look for Ling Hanfeng, Lu Qinghu, Zhou Han, and Zhou Feng. He told them about the conversation he overheard between Lin Lan and the other two girls. For a moment, the four of them were silent. "Since even Madame is unwilling to follow the young master to the Valley of the Medicine Masters for fear of being a burden to him, how can we be so selfish?" Lung Hanfeng was the first to speak, his eyes shining. "I've decided to return to Qingshan town with Madame. In my spare time from practicing in Qingshan town, I'll create a force in Yunfeng Prefecture to protect Madame and Miss Xiaolu. This way, the young master will have less to worry about." Both Zhou Han and Zhou Feng saw Ling Hanfeng as their second parent and teacher. They would naturally follow Ling Hanfeng's decision unconditionally. "I had originally planned to follow young Master Donghuang and perhaps reach the Khanate stage in the future, but now it seems that even if I don't go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters with young Master Donghuang, I am confident that I can reach the Khanate stage in my lifetime." Lu Qinghu's eyes flashed and he smiled. "Since all of you intend to return to Yunfeng Prefecture with Madame, then I will return with you. From now on, as long as the Lu family is not destroyed, I will protect Madame." As his voice faded, Lu Qinghu's eyes flashed with incomparable determination. The Chu royal household. "Your Highness, it has already been 3 months since Commander Xiao sent the message to the Imperial Court. Is there still no movement from the Imperial Court?" In a spacious courtyard, a beautiful woman in luxurious clothes with hatred in her eyes asked a middle-aged man sitting at a table reading a book. The middle-aged man was wearing a dark gold robe embroidered with a 4-clawed golden dragon. He was the lord of the Chu royal household, the Chu king, Xiang Xiong. As for the beautiful woman, she was his first wife, the Chu queen, Fan Ji. "No." Hearing Fan Ji's question, Xiang Xiong closed the book in his hands and shook his head. "Something does not seem right. I asked Commander Xiao, and he went to the Imperial City at the end of September to inform the Imperial Court of the murder of His Majesty and the Khanate demon Silver-Crowned Crane of the Valley of the Medicine Masters." Fan Ji said in a low voice, "I've estimated. If the Imperial Court were to report to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, it would take at least a month. After all, in the Imperial Court, besides the petty consummation flying demon, the Cloud Condor, they also have a petty consummation flying demon, the Fiery Lion. Even if the Ardent Flame Master is temporarily kept in the Valley of the Medicine Masters by His Majesty, the Imperial family has also domesticated 2 level 9 flying demons. With the speed of those 2 flying demons, they can reach the Valley of the Medicine Masters in less than a month. Even if they were slower, it would take at most a month. And even if the people from the Valley of the Medicine Masters did not have other Khanate demons as mounts, they still have many great consummation demons, including many flying demons. Even if the Valley Lord of the Valley of the Medicine Masters did not do it himself, other Khanate adepts would take at most half a month to reach the Chu royal city. But now 3 months have passed, and there is still no news from that side. As she said this, Fan Ji's expression was very ugly. "Princess, you still can't let it go?" Seeing Fan Ji like this, how could Xiang Xiong not know what she was thinking? For a moment, he could not help but sigh. Your Highness, until now, I still dream of the Fan family begging me to avenge them. Fan Ji's eyes were full of hatred as she said in a suppressed voice, I only hate that I do not have the ability to avenge them. Otherwise, I would not need to count on the strong men of the Valley of the Medicine Masters to come and kill Zhou Dongwang to avenge the Khanate demon of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and the Emperor of Yunyang country. When Fan Ji reached the end of her sentence, her tone was so cold that it seemed to perfectly complement the cold weather, blending together perfectly. It's all my fault for not being able to avenge you. Xiang Xiong sighed. Your Highness, I do not blame you. Fan Ji's eyes were full of murderous intent. Every wrong has its perpetrator now. I only hope that the strong men of the Valley of the Medicine Masters will come quickly and kill Zhou Dongwang to avenge my Fan family. Even if they did not kill Zhou Dongwang to avenge my Fan family. Now, Fan Ji was glaring fiercely, her eyes full of hatred. And almost at the same moment that Fan Ji finished speaking. Bang! A loud sound suddenly rang out, startling Fan Ji so much that her body trembled involuntarily, and the book in Xiang Xiong's hand fell to the ground. In the next moment, both Fan Ji and Xiang Xiong realized that there was an additional person in the courtyard. The newcomer was dressed in a thin white robe, and his body was surrounded by a green light. When the green light expanded, it was at least a foot away from his body. Khanate stage adept. Seeing this white figure with his back to them, Xiang Xiong and Fan Ji's eyes narrowed, and Fan Ji could not help but cry out. You are from the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Xiang Xiong stood up, took a deep breath, and bowed respectfully to the white figure with his back to them. I did not intend to argue with you, but since you hate me so much, I cannot let you live, said a calm voice. Hearing this, Xiang Xiong's expression changed, and his eyes narrowed. At the same time, the white figure finally turned around slowly. A handsome yet slightly childish face appeared before Xiang Xiong's eyes. The young man was dressed in a robe whiter than snow and had an extraordinary air about him. His eyelids were half-lidded, and his expression was extremely languid. Young Master Dongwang, Xiang Xiong's face was pale, and his legs gave way as he fell to the ground in fright. We have no intention of making you our enemy. He had never imagined that in just a few months, the young man before him would enter the Khanate stage. An 18-year-old Khanate stage adept? Young Master Dongwang? Originally, Fan Ji had not been able to react when she heard the newcomer's words, but now that she heard how Xiang Xiong addressed him, her expression changed completely. This young man in white before them was the Zhou Dongwang who had commanded the two golden-crowned eagles to destroy the entire Fan family? You have no intention of making me your enemy? Zhou Dongwang glanced at the two of them indifferently, and his lips curled into a mocking smile. Then just now I was deaf? As he finished speaking, Zhou Dongwang waved his hand in the instant that their expressions changed. Whoosh! The sword sphere transformed into a sword, and the sound of the sword was fleeting as it took the lives of Xiang Xiong and Fan Ji. 15 minutes ago, Zhou Dongwang had just entered the Khanate stage, and as he continued to use the Lord of the Four Supremes, he found that he had entered an ethereal state. In that state, his hearing had reached a terrifying level, and it could be heard all the way from Chuxiu Inn to the Chu royal household. Although the Chuxiu Inn and the Chu royal household were not far apart, it was still a few hundred meters away, and there was also a lot of noise in between. But even so, in that ethereal state, Zhou Dongwang could clearly hear everything that was going on in the Chu royal household. This included the conversation between Xiang Xiong and Fan Ji. And because of this, when he recovered from that ethereal state and could no longer hear anything outside the Chuxiu Inn, he left the room immediately, leaping onto the roofs and vaulting over the walls to leave the Chuxiu Inn and head straight for the Chu royal household. End of chapter. Chapter 139. December 25, 1229 of the Ziyun era. Zhou Dongwang had officially entered the Khanate stage, and become a Khanate adept. After killing Xiang Xiong, Zhou Donghuang did not use his swiftness techniques to leave the Chu royal household. Instead, he swaggered out of the courtyard where Xiang Xiong and his wife were staying. Furthermore, he kicked the door open with one foot. "Who is it?" The faces of the servants and guards standing guard outside the courtyard changed, but when they saw the young man walking out emitting a foot-long green light, they shut their mouths tightly, their eyes filled with fear. Emitting a foot-long qi was the hallmark of an early Khanate adept. This young man dressed in white was a Khanate adept? Zhou Donghuang glanced at the servants and guards, then turned and walked towards the main gate of the Chu royal household, controlling the release of qi in his body as he walked. He was adapting to the early Khanate stage. Although he had experienced this cultivation realm in his previous life, this cultivation realm was unfamiliar to his body in this life. He needed some time to get used to it. Maintaining the release of qi would allow him to adapt more quickly. Therefore, when Zhou Donghuang walked out of the main gate of the Chu royal household, most people in the Chu royal household already knew that their master, the Chu king, Xiang Xiong, had been killed by a Khanate adept. The Chu king's wife, Fan Ji, had been killed together with him. About half an hour later, in the main hall of the Chu royal household, "I just returned from Chuxiu Inn." The innkeeper of Chuxiu Inn saw Zhou Donghuang return to Chuxiu Inn, his body emitting a foot-long green light. The second elder of the Chu royal household, Xiang Donghua, had a solemn expression. It can be confirmed that the young man who killed the king and his wife and swaggered out of the Chu royal household is Zhou Donghuang. He has already entered the Khanate stage? The expression of Xue Meng, the commander of the Chu royal city guards, changed drastically. He seems to be only 18 years old? An 18-year-old Khanate adept? Now it seems that as long as the adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters do not appear, no one in the 16 countries of the East Valley will be able to deal with him. Commander Xue, you seem to have reported to the Imperial Court 2 months ago that His Majesty and the Khanate demon from the Valley of the Medicine Masters had been killed by Zhou Donghuang? Looking at the time, the people sent by the Valley of the Medicine Masters should have arrived long ago. Why haven't they arrived yet? The people from the Valley of the Medicine Masters will come sooner or later. They may not care about the death of our king, but they cannot possibly not care about the death of that silver-crowned crane. I think so too. That silver-crowned crane is not only the only Khanate stage demon in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, but it has also been the Valley Head's mount for many years. Although the Chu royal household had deliberately concealed the fact that the Chu king, Xiang Xiong, and the Chu royal consort, Fan Ji, had been killed, but too many people knew about it, so the news spread quickly. Immediately, the entire Chu royal city was in an uproar. Both His Highness and His Highness died at the hands of Zhou Donghuang? Oh my God! That youth, isn't he worried that the Imperial Court of Yunyang Country will punish him? The Imperial Court of Yunyang Country? The last time, the great consummation adepts sent by the Imperial Court of Yunyang had all been killed by him? Would he be afraid of the Imperial Court? No wonder everyone says he can take on an entire country by himself. The Imperial Court has not made a move yet, so they must be very wary of him. In the bordering regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley, if the Valley of the Medicine Masters does not act, I'm afraid no one can deal with him. I heard that after his murder today, when he left the Chu royal household, he was surrounded by a foot of qi. He has obviously entered the Khanate stage. The Khanate stage? A youth like him has entered the Khanate stage? A youth at the Khanate stage, this is unbelievable. A youth at the Khanate stage, not just in the country of Yunyang, but even in the bordering regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley, including the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there had never been such a person. The youth's achievements in the bordering regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley could be said to be unprecedented. The Tang family household. When the patriarch of the Tycoon Tang family, Tang Liunian, heard that the youth had entered the Khanate stage, The first thing he wanted to do was visit to congratulate him, but on second thought, he smiled bitterly and dismissed the idea. The imperial court of Yunyang country must not have the confidence to deal with him, and that is why they have not sent anyone, but, as the saying goes, the tallest tree in the forest is the first to be destroyed by the wind. The masters of the Valley of the Medicine Masters will probably come to deal with him soon. Tang Liunyan sighed. Back then, when the retired emperor of the imperial court of Yunyang had died at the hands of Zhou Donghuang, this matter had been kept under tight wraps. Even the people of the tycoon families of the Chu royal city did not know about it. They only thought that the imperial court of Yunyang had only sent a great consummation adept of the Qi gathering and a petty consummation flying demon, and that they had died at the hands of the youth. Now, I can only hope that the masters of the Valley of the Medicine Masters will be more willing to accept him into the Valley of the Medicine Masters and not kill him, otherwise, the heavens will really be jealous of him. Because he had considered the possibility that the Valley of the Medicine Masters would deal with the youth, Tang Liunyan had dismissed the idea of congratulating the youth. Today, he congratulated the youth. The Chu royal household would not dare to touch him, the imperial court of Yunyang country would not dare to touch him, but what if the masters of the Valley of the Medicine Masters arrived and killed the youth? After the youth died, the imperial court of Yunyang country would not bother to touch him, but the Chu royal household would definitely not let him off. As the patriarch of the Tycoon Tang family, Tang Liunyan thought very far ahead. Yang family mansion. Yang Yunji, the patriarch of the Grand Yang family, knew that the youth had entered the Khanate stage and become a Khanate adept, and his expression was naturally very ugly. I can only hope that when the masters of the Valley of the Medicine Masters arrive, they will kill him directly, and not take him in because of his talent. Yang Yunji prayed silently, his eyes filled with a murderous look. Sure family mansion. The imperial court of Yunyang country has not sent anyone over for a long time, and there has been no movement from the Valley of the Medicine Masters either. Looks like the imperial court of Yunyang country does not intend to share with the Valley of the Medicine Masters the fact that Zhou Donghuang obtained the legacy of the primal core adept. Shiryu, the first young master of the Tycoon Shi family, had a glint in his eyes. Otherwise, with the temptation of the legacy left behind by the primal core adept, the Valley of the Medicine Masters would definitely have made a move. The imperial court of Yunyang country must have hidden it from the Valley of the Medicine Masters because they want to keep the legacy of the primal core adept for themselves. Thinking of this, Shiryu immediately left the Shi family mansion and headed for the Lu family mansion. The Lu family was one of the top 3 tycoon families in the Chu royal city, and they usually only had some business dealings with the Shi family, with no other entanglement. However, when Shiryu went to the Lu family this time, he went directly to the patriarch of the Lu family, Lu Yuanshan. Nephew Shiryu, you asked a disciple of the Lu family to inform me that you have a way to establish a relationship between the Lu family and the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Is this true? Lu Yuanshan was a middle-aged man dressed in a long gray robe. He was thin, and half of his hair had already turned white. He looked at Shiryu with a serious expression. Patriarch Lu, how would I dare to lie in front of you? Shiryu smiled faintly and said, I came here this time to give an opportunity to your Lu family. I would like to hear the details. Lu Yuanshan looked at Shiryu with a piercing gaze. He did not think that a disciple of the inferior Tycoon Shi family would dare to make fun of him, the patriarch of the elite Tycoon Lu family. Shiryu took a deep breath and immediately revealed everything he knew about Zhou Donghuang. Now, both the Chu royal family and the imperial court already know that Zhou Donghuang has obtained the primal core adept's legacy. However, the imperial court obviously does not want to inform the Valley of the Medicine Masters of this matter. Otherwise, even if the imperial court does not dare to send anyone to deal with Zhou Donghuang, the Valley of the Medicine Masters would not have remained silent until now. Therefore, I conclude that the imperial court definitely did not inform the Valley of the Medicine Masters of this matter. As sure you spoke to this point, Lu Yuanshan could not help but gasp. I really did not expect that Zhou Dongwang was born and raised in an inferior prefecture. I knew it, in the country of Yunyang. How could there be such a monster like him, an 18-year-old Khanate adept? So it turns out that he obtained the legacy of the Primal Core Adept. No wonder. At this point, Lu Yuanshan looked deeply at Shiryu. So you, Shiryu, want the Lu family to inform the Valley of the Medicine Masters of this matter? Why don't you go yourself? Lu Yuanshan asked. Patriarch Lu, you must be worried that the information is wrong and the Valley of the Medicine Masters will punish you? Sure, you seemed to read Lu Yuanshan's mind at a glance and smiled faintly. How about this? I will go with you. The reason why I came to you is that your Lu family has a level 7 flying demon, the white-headed vulture. Of course, if you are not willing to go, I can go to the Ouyang family. As far as I know, the Ouyang family also has a level 7 flying demon. Sure, Yu's smile remained, as if he was certain that Lu Yuanshan would agree. The Chu royal family has a level 8 flying demon. Why don't you go to the Chu royal family? Lu Yuanshan asked again. Patriarch Lu, if the Chu royal family had such intentions, they would have gone to the Valley of the Medicine Masters themselves long ago. After all, the Chu royal family already knew that Zhou Dongwang had obtained the legacy of the Primal Core Adept. Sure, you shook his head. If I went to the Chu royal family, it would be useless. In that case, why should I go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Patriarch Lu, come with me to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. When the Valley of the Medicine Masters has obtained the Primal Core Adept's legacy, they will not treat you badly. Sure, you continued. If you are really not interested, I will go to the Ouyang family now. Lu Yuanshan's expression fluctuated, but in the end, he still agreed. Good. I will go with you. About a quarter of an hour later, a completely black vulture with white feathers around its bald head rose into the air from the Lu family mansion and flew out of the Chu royal city. This vulture was the Lu family's level 7 flying demon, the white-headed vulture. At this moment, on the back of the white-headed vulture stood Shiryu and Lu Yuanshan. End of this chapter. Chapter 140. Big brother, you've attained the Khanate stage? As the news that Zhou Dongwang had attained the Khanate stage spread throughout the Chu royal city, Yun Lu, who was in the third guest room of Chuxiu Inn, heard the whispers of the servant girls, and immediately ran to the second guest room to look for Zhou Dongwang. When Yun Lu arrived, the youth was sitting at the stone table drinking tea and basking in the sun. The green light surrounding his body had disappeared into his body not long ago. Wow! Big brother is so powerful, an 18-year-old Khanate stage adept. I heard that in the history of the 16 countries of the East Valley, there has never been such a powerful person. Yun Lu jumped into the youth's arms and looked at him with admiration. She muttered, I wonder when I will be able to attain the Khanate stage like Big Brother. Silly girl, with your talent, you will definitely be the first to attain the Khanate stage, apart from Big Gold and Big Gold. Zhou Dongwang patted the girl's head and smiled dotingly. Really? Yun Lu asked, her large, watery eyes looking at him, as if to confirm what the youth had said. Of course. Zhou Dongwang nodded confidently. He had seen Yun Lu's improvement in this period of time. Yun Lu's current level of practice was almost on par with Lu Qinghu and Freezing Wind, who had the highest level of practice among the people around him. With Yun Lu's talent in martial arts, she would definitely be the first among the people around him to step into the innate realm and become a cultivator of the innate realm. When I attain the Khanate stage, I will no longer be a burden to Big Brother, then. I can go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to find Big Brother. Yun Lu's sparkling eyes were filled with yearning. Burden? Zhou Dongwang frowned. Xiao Lu, who said you were a burden to Big Brother? Big Brother, I let it slip. Mother said I can't tell Big Brother like that. Yun-Lu giggled. Big brother, you can't betray me. Mother said that. Zhou Dongwang's frown deepened. Xiao Lu, what's going on? Big brother, Mother said that if we follow you to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, we will definitely be a burden to you. Also, she said that she likes Qingshan Town more, so she plans to leave the Chu royal household and return to Qingshan Town in Yunfeng Prefecture when you go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Yun-Lu blinked her big eyes and said. Hearing Yun-Lu's words, Zhou Dongwang shook his head and sighed. How can Mother think that way? You will never be a burden. After hearing from Yun-Lu that Lin Lan was returning to Qingshan Town, Zhou Dongwang specially went to find Lin Lan and persuaded her to follow him to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Mother, you will not be a burden to me. Moreover, in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, I can take better care of you. Dongwang, Mother has already made up her mind. You don't have to persuade her anymore. Lin Lan said with a smile. Do what you want to do. In the future, if you have time, come back to Qingshan Town often to visit me. Mother will also cultivate diligently, and strive to live to see you marry and have children, and have many children and grandchildren. As she said this, Lin Lan's eyes were filled with anticipation. Zhou Dongwang tried to persuade her for a while, but Lin Lan still did not budge. Finally, Zhou Dongwang could only give up. Mother, since you have really made up your mind, then I will not try to persuade you any further. Tomorrow, I will personally send you back to Qingshan Town, and then accompany you for a while before going to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Fortunately, the golden-crowned eagle Little Gold had now attained great consummation of the Qi gathering and had grown in size. Otherwise, the two golden-crowned eagles would not have been able to carry Zhou Dongwang and the others away from the Chu royal city and back to Qingshan Town in Yunfeng Prefecture. Sister Zishi, Auntie Mei, don't be afraid. Even if you really fall, Little Gold will save you. On Little Gold's back, Yun-Lu sat cross-legged on Lin Lan's lap and smiled at Yang Zishi and her servant, who had their eyes closed. However, this was the first time that Yang Zishi and her servant had ridden on a golden-crowned eagle, and they did not dare to open their eyes for a long time. Only after a long time did Yang Zishi muster the courage to open her eyes and take in the surroundings. The few of you really do not intend to go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters with me? Zhou Dongwang asked calmly as he stood beside Lin Lan and looked at Fu, Freezing Wind, Lu Qinghu, Zhou Han, and Zhou Feng. Young master, since Madame has decided to return to Qingshan Town, I am also preparing to return to the Lu family. If Madame wishes to continue running the Magnolia Guild, the Lu family will be her greatest support, Lu Qinghu said with a smile, and his expression became more serious and solemn. Young master, if Fu follows you now, he will only be a burden to you. Moreover, Qingshan Town is Fu's hometown, and if Madame wishes to return, Fu wishes to go with her. Fu said, Young master, Zhou Han, Zhou Feng, and I will protect Madame and young mistress. You will not have to worry about anything when you go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Freezing Wind said. Zhou Dongwang nodded. To him, if all these people were by his side, he would indeed be unable to move around freely. Now that they were willing to stay, he did not try to persuade them otherwise. Of course, this did not mean that Zhou Dongwang intended to give up on them. On the contrary, Zhou Dongwang decided to nurture each and every one of them. This way, when he ascended to the divine realm, he would be able to leave behind a group of trusted aides that belonged solely to him in the secular universe to protect his mother Lin Lan, his sister Yun-Lu, and everyone else he cared about. The experience of his past life had taught him the importance of this. In the history of this secular universe, there had been many cases of strong practitioners who, after ascending to the divine realm, did not make arrangements for their friends and family in the secular universe, and their family and friends were sought after by their enemies. For some strong practitioners, after ascending to the divine realm, not only did their friends and family meet with misfortune, but even the sects and families that they had been in were also destroyed. Walking in this mundane universe, anything that he cared about was a weakness, unless he was an itinerant cultivator like in his previous life. At the same time, walking in this secular universe, it was inevitable that he would make enemies with some people and some forces. This was unavoidable, and it was not always possible to eliminate the root of the problem perfectly. Therefore, it was necessary to nurture a group of trusted aides that belonged solely to him. It's good that they are staying in Yunyang country in the future. As long as I have practice resources, I can send them back to them. This way, their growth will not be slow. Zhou Donghuang made up his mind in an instant. The two great consummation golden-crowned eagles flew back to Qingshan town in Yunfeng Prefecture in just a few days, even without using their qi and relying on their own flying speed. They arrived at Qingshan town on the 31st of December, the last day of year 1229 of the Ziyun era. Business at Yunxian restaurant was still booming. After Zhou Donghuang and the others had their meal in the heavenly dining booth of Yunxian restaurant, they returned to the courtyard behind Yunxian restaurant. Although it had been vacant for a long time, the chief steward of Yunxian restaurant, Lu Qing, a collateral descendant of the Lu family, was very meticulous as a woman and often arranged for the cleaning to be done. Therefore, the place was kept clean, and Zhou Donghuang and the others could move in immediately when they returned. This Lu Qing of the Lu family is not bad. Zhou Donghuang was not stingy with his praise for what Lu Qing had done in front of Lu Qinghu. When I return to the Lu family, I will definitely reward her and her family handsomely. Lu Qinghu nodded in response. When do you intend to return to the Lu family? Zhou Donghuang asked. Qinghu wants to stay by your side before you leave, young master, and listen to your teachings. Lu Qinghu said seriously. Listening to my teachings is a pretense, your real intention is for me to assist you in your practice, right? Zhou Donghuang looked deeply at Lu Qinghu, revealing his thoughts in one sentence, causing Lu Qinghu to laugh awkwardly. The main thing is that mysterious golden light that you have created can increase the speed of my practice by more than 10 times. Although Lu Qinghu had been enjoying the Buddha's light that extended from the Buddhist essence to assist in his practice, he did not know that it was the Buddha's light from the Buddhist essence. He only knew that under the cover of the golden light, the speed of his practice had increased by more than 10 times. This was also the main reason why he could not bear to leave Zhou Donghuang before Zhou Donghuang left Qingshan town for the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Over the next few days, Zhou Donghuang constantly maintained the power of the Buddhist essence in his body, transforming it into a Buddha's light to assist Lu Qinghu and the others in their practice. As for him, he stayed by Lin Lan's side and chatted with her, starting from when they were young and talking about what had happened later. However, every time he mentioned Chen Dandan, Lin Lan's voice would stop abruptly. Chen Dandan. Zhou Donghuang's eyes flashed coldly. He knew that Chen Dandan was most likely in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and as long as he went there, he would be able to see Chen Dandan again. Chen Dandan, right now, perhaps you are still gloating over the fact that your biological father is the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, right? Don't worry, very soon, I will go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters and drag you from heaven to hell. At this thought, a murderous glint flashed across Zhou Donghuang's eyes. Following that, because Lin Lan mentioned Granny Lian many times, Zhou Donghuang specially drove Big Gold to the capital city of Yunfeng Prefecture to bring Granny Lian back to Qingshan town. At the same time, he wrote down a number of prescriptions for Lin Lan. Mother, among these prescriptions there are the prescriptions for the qi-gathering elixir that you are currently using, as well as other elixirs and potions. Among them, there are some of the more precious herbs that Yunfeng Prefecture does not have. When I go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, I will make a trip to the Chu royal household to get them to collect and send them to you. Seeing that Zhou Donghuang had given her the prescriptions, Lin Lan knew that her son was about to leave. Donghuang, when do you plan to leave? Lin Lan asked reluctantly. In another 2 days. Zhou Dongwang smiled. Mother, I will come back to see you when I have time. Big Gold will soon be able to attain the Khanate stage, and when it becomes a Khanate demon, it will only take a few days to travel from the Valley of the Medicine Masters to Qingshan Town. End of this chapter. Chapter 141. Parting always makes people sad. Therefore, when Zhou Dongwang left this time, he only told his mother, Lin Lan, and let Lin Lan pass the message on to the others. On the morning of the 8th day of the first month, 1230 of the Ziyun era, Zhou Dongwang rode on the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold. One man and one eagle left Qingshan Town and headed for the Valley of the Medicine Masters. As for the golden-crowned eagle, Little Gold, he was ordered by Zhou Dongwang to stay in Qingshan Town to protect his mother, Lin Lan, and his sister, Yun Lu, and the others. Little Gold, keep a close eye on them. If anything happens to my mother and Xiao Lu, I will hold you accountable. Little Gold was naturally very unwilling to stay in Qingshan Town. After all, if it left the youth, it would no longer be able to enjoy the Buddhist light of the Buddhist essence, and its cultivation speed would also slow down. However, in the end, it had no choice but to submit to the young man's tyranny and stay obediently. Moreover, the young man also told it, once his big brother entered the Khanate state and became a Khanate demon, he would order his big brother to go back to Qingshan Town and take over his shift. He would then send his big brother to the Valley of Medicine Masters to practice by his side. A few days later, Zhou Dongwang and Big Gold once again returned to the Chu royal city and appeared directly above the Chu royal household. Whoosh! Crash! When Big Gold landed in the Chu royal household with Zhou Dongwang on its back, it naturally caused quite a commotion. The guards who had heard the commotion quickly retreated, not daring to approach. A golden-crowned eagle! The youth in white behind the golden-crowned eagle, could he be that young Khanate master? In our country of Yunyang, besides him, no one else has a golden-crowned eagle as a mount. As the guards whispered among themselves, the second elder of the Chu royal family, Xiang Donghua, appeared with a few other elders of the Chu royal family, bowing respectfully to the youth. Greetings, young Master Dongwang. At this moment, the group of guards watching from afar, upon hearing the words of the second elder of the Chu royal household, confirmed the identity of the youth. It was the young Khanate stage expert, Zhou Dongwang. As the Ziyun era entered the year 1230, Zhou Dongwang could be considered to have crossed the threshold of 19 years old. However, his face still carried a hint of childishness, to the extent that when others saw him, they would still subconsciously think that he was just a teenager. Strictly speaking, in the Ziyun planet, anyone who had reached the age of 18 was considered a youth. Who is in charge of the Chu royal family now? Zhou Dong stood on the back of the golden-crowned eagle, his hands clasped behind his back as he looked down at Xiang Donghua and the other elders of the Chu royal household. Reporting to young Master Dongwang, head elder and I are currently in charge. Xiang Donghua replied respectfully. Although the young man before them had killed the king and princess of the Chu royal family, he was a Khanate stage adept, which meant that the Chu royal family could only suffer in silence. Send people from the Chu royal household to search for the herbs on this piece of paper. No matter how many you find, send them to Qingshan Town in Yunfeng Prefecture and hand them over to my mother. Zhou Dongwang raised his hand, and a piece of paper floated out and flew towards Xiang Donghua. Understood. Xiang Donghua took the paper, and without even looking at it, he respectfully responded. This is a second-grade offensive technique. Consider it a token of appreciation for the Chu royal family's hard work in the future. When I return to Qingshan Town, if I find that you are efficient, I will give you another second-grade swiftness technique. Zhou Dongwang raised his hand again, and another piece of paper filled with words flew out towards Xiang Donghua. This time, after hearing Zhou Dongwang's words, Xiang Donghua's eyes narrowed, and his face turned red as he hurriedly reached out to catch the piece of paper that Zhou Dongwang had thrown over. As the second elder of the Chu royal household, Xiang Donghua was a petty consummation adept of the qi gathering, and with just one look, he could tell that the piece of paper in his hand contained a second-grade technique. Before this, the Chu royal household had only had a few third-grade techniques, and no second-grade techniques at all. Second-grade techniques, even in the imperial court of Yunyang, were extremely rare, so much so that the imperial court of Yunyang was unwilling to share them with the various royal households. Big Gold, let's go! As Xiang Donghua and the elders of the Chu royal household looked excited, Zhou Donghuang called out to Big Gold, and it spread its wings and transformed into a bolt of black lightning that shot into the sky, disappearing into the clouds. Even if Zhou Donghuang did not give the Chu royal household any benefits, he was not worried that they would not help him. However, if the Chu royal household were to help him because of his threat, they would definitely not be very efficient. But now, he had given the Chu royal household a second-grade offensive technique, and had even promised that if they were efficient, he would give them another second-grade swiftness technique. Under such circumstances, the Chu royal household would definitely do their best to help him, and they would be as efficient as possible. Whoosh! After Zhou Donghuang left the Chu royal city on the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, he headed in the direction of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Before leaving the Chu royal household, he had already obtained a map of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and he had shown it to Big Gold before setting off this time. Therefore, Big Gold now knew the way from the Chu royal city to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Although Big Gold had not yet attained the Khanate stage and become a Khanate demon, in terms of speed, few great consummation flying demons could match its speed. In less than 10 days, Big Gold had already left the borders of Yunyang country. And during this time, Zhou Donghuang had been sitting cross-legged on its back practicing, allowing the strong wind to blow against him, but it did not affect him in the slightest. The Valley of the Medicine Masters was located in the southwest of Yunyang country, and it was still some distance from Yunyang country. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Young Master, we've arrived. From the Chu royal city of the western ridge of the Chu king in Yunyang country, Big Gold had spent 10 days to reach the skies above the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and had informed Zhou Donghuang at the same time. We've arrived. Zhou Donghuang woke up from his practice, opened his eyes, and looked in front of him. With just one glance, he could see the vast valley in front of him. Within the valley, he could vaguely see a forest of buildings, and in addition, there were several roads that passed in front of those buildings, leading out of the valley. The environment of the Valley of the Medicine Masters is not bad. In the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, apart from the forest of buildings, it still maintained the original appearance of the forest. Everywhere was green, and looking from afar, it was relaxing. Young Master, shall we go in directly? In the blink of an eye, Big Gold had carried Zhou Donghuang to the outer skies of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and as it flew in circles, it asked Zhou Donghuang. Directly in, Zhou Donghuang said lightly. The master of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the valley head Su Mo, had now acknowledged him as his master, and was willing to be his dog. Now that he had come to his dog's territory, did he still need to go to the mountain gate of the Valley of the Medicine Masters to let someone in to inform him? Yes. Big Gold responded, and with a flap of its wings, it seemed to transform into a bolt of black lightning, piercing through the air into the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, and in the blink of an eye, it was in the skies above the valley. Young Master, how do we find the valley head? Big Gold asked Zhou Donghuang as it flew in circles above the valley. Wait a moment, he will naturally come, Zhou Donghuang said lightly. From his words, it was as if he was certain that the valley head Su Mo would personally come to welcome him. As he finished speaking, Zhou Donghuang, who had been sitting cross-legged on Big Gold's back, closed his eyes to rest. In each of the directions of the valley, where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, there was a lookout tower, and there were usually elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters riding on great consummation flying demons on duty there. When they were on duty, their main duty was to act as the eyes of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, keeping watch in all directions. In the sky above the Valley of the Medicine Masters, a flying demon beast suddenly appeared, and one of the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was the first to notice it. It looks like an eagle-type demon beast. It looks like the one riding it here is the esteemed guest that the Valley Lord spoke about previously. Some time ago, the Valley Head, Su-Mo, had returned from outside and immediately summoned a group of elders on duty at the observation towers, instructing them to keep an eye on the skies above the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located for a period of time. If someone rode an eagle demon into the valley, they were not to offend the intruder, and had to inform him immediately. He said that the intruder was his esteemed guest, and that he would personally receive him. As he muttered to himself, the Valley Elder leapt onto the back of a huge gray eagle, and steered the eagle into a streak of gray light, flying towards one side of the valley. This gray eagle was one of the great consummation flying demons reared by the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the thunder-feathered eagle. Most of the great consummation flying demons reared by the Valley of the Medicine Masters were flying demons. And this was all thanks to the Valley of the Medicine Masters' connate demon, the silver-crowned crane. As a connate stage flying demon, the silver-crowned crane could easily kill great consummation flying demons and steal their eggs. Those eggs eventually became the property of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Valley Head. As the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters rode the thunder-feathered eagle to the residence of Su-Mo, the Valley Head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, he reported to Su-Mo that someone had arrived on an eagle-type demon beast. Su-Mo hurriedly leapt onto the back of the thunder-feathered eagle and steered it into the air. What esteemed guest is it to make the Valley Head rush to receive him? The Valley Elder looked at the thunder-feathered eagle, which had become a small black dot in the blink of an eye, and his face was full of shock. Even when the leader of the Guiyuan sect came last time, the Valley Head did not lose his composure like this. The Guiyuan sect was a sect comparable in power to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and its leader was also a late connate stage adept. The Valley of the Medicine Masters ruled over a large area around the 16 countries of the East Valley, and the Guiyuan sect ruled over a large area around the 14 countries of the southern border. Su-Mo greets Master. In just a quarter of an hour, Zhou Donghuang, who was sitting cross-legged on the back of the golden-crowned eagle, saw the Valley Head, Su-Mo, arrive. When Su-Mo saw the youth again, he knelt respectfully on the back of the thunder-feathered eagle, his demeanor humble and docile, like a cat. Fortunately, the thunder-feathered eagle had not yet awakened its intelligence. Otherwise, seeing the Valley Head kneeling in front of a youth, it would have been so frightened that it forgot to flap its wings and fell from the sky. End of this chapter. Chapter 142. Ever since his last serious injury, when he returned to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, it was not that Su-Mo had not considered pretending to obey, gambling that the youth might not be able to display the power of the connate stage to crush him again. But every night, the scene of the youth crushing him would appear again and again. Every time he was on the brink of death, he was on the verge of a mental breakdown. In the end, Su-Mo no longer dared to entertain any hopes of getting lucky. Acknowledging the youth as his master, although humiliating, would at least allow him to live. He had practiced for more than 60 years and entered the late connate stage. With his martial talent, he still had a chance to reach the primal core stage before his lifespan came to an end. Once he entered the primal core stage, his lifespan would break through and he would be able to live for 300 years. If he could not enter the primal core stage, he would live for 100 years at most. But once he entered the primal core stage, he could live for another 200 years. He was not willing to die for the sake of his dignity. Zhou Donghuang lazily opened his eyes and glanced at Su-Mo, the Valley Head of the Valley of Medicine Masters, who was respectfully kneeling on the back of the thunder-feathered eagle, and replied calmly, "Get up." Only when the youth spoke did Suemo dare to stand up and say respectfully, "Master, you must be tired from the journey. Shall I arrange a place for you to rest?" Zhou Dongwang nodded. "Arrange a quiet place for me." In a moment, Suemo led the way on the thunder-feathered eagle, bringing Zhou Dongwang and the golden-crowned eagle in the direction of his residence. Finally, they landed halfway up the mountain, in front of a cave with a small path that led to the main roads of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. However, far away from the cave, at the two corners of the path, there were two huge stone tablets, on which the words "Forbidden Grounds" were carved. The words "Forbidden Grounds" were carved with red ink, making it very conspicuous. "Master, this is the training ground of my master, the previous head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. It is a completely different world inside, incomparably quiet. Go in and take a look. If you are satisfied, you can stay here. If you are not satisfied, I will give you my residence at the foot of the mountain," Suemo said respectfully. The entrance of the cave was very large, more than 10 meters high and 5 or 6 meters wide. Even if Big Gold entered the Khanate stage, he would still be able to come and go as he pleased. "Master, please." After Suemo leaped off the back of the thunder-feathered eagle and landed, he led the way in front. Zhou Dongwang also landed and followed behind him into the cave. The thunder-feathered eagle obediently waited outside, while Big Gold followed them in. After entering the cave, they could see a faint white light in the depths of the cave. After walking for 10 meters, the white light became brighter and brighter. At the same time, they arrived at a corner. After turning the corner, they entered an incomparably large cave. This cave was extremely spacious. It was more than 50 meters long, no less than 40 meters wide, and 20 meters high. It was as if the belly of the mountain had been hollowed out. Seeing this, Zhou Dongwang's heart skipped a beat. With such a large cave, even if Big Gold reaches the ultimate Khanate stage, it can still spread its wings freely here. Inside the cave, there were artificial green plants all around, and there was no lack of plants that could be used as medicinal herbs, emitting a fragrant aroma. In addition, at one side of the cave there was a small waterfall. Water overflowed from the corner of one side of the cave and flowed down at a steady pace, nourishing the plants around the cave. In the cave, there was a standalone wooden hut. The furnishings inside were simple, and besides a wooden bed and a wooden table, there was nothing else. "Master, what do you think?" Suemo looked at the youth and asked uneasily. "Yes." Seeing the youth nod, Suemo heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he took out a token that he had prepared earlier and handed it to the youth. "Master, this is the Medicine Master token. Seeing the token is like seeing me. With this Medicine Master token, it will be more convenient for you in the Valley of the Medicine Masters in the future." There was only one Medicine Master token in the entire Valley of the Medicine Masters, and it was usually in the hands of the successive Valley heads. When the Valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters handed the Medicine Master token to someone, it also meant that that person had the same level of authority as the Valley head. Zhou Dongwang took the token and stuffed it into his pocket. He did not even look at this token that symbolized the highest level of authority in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. "Master, when it's mealtime, I will arrange for someone to deliver your meal to you," Suemo continued. Zhou Dongwang nodded again. "In that case, I will not disturb Master's rest." As Suemo bowed and retreated, he added, "Master, I live at the foot of the mountain below this cave. If you need anything, you can look for me at any time." "Wait." Just as Suemo was about to leave, Zhou Dongwang called out to him. He took out a piece of paper from his pocket and threw it at him from afar. The light piece of paper floated in the air, as if it had a life of its own, and it slowly landed in Sumo's hands. "I have an urgent need for the herbs written on it. Gather them and send them over as soon as possible," Zhou Dongwang said. "Yes, master." As he replied respectfully, Sumo subconsciously glanced at the large pile of herbs recorded on the paper. And it was this one glance that made him completely stunned. Master, you are planning to formulate Khanate elixir? As the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Sumo was not only skilled in martial arts, but he was also very skilled in medicine. Sumo was a true Earth-level medicine master. As an Earth-level medicine master, Sumo could formulate a Qi-gathering elixir that doubled the sensitivity to Qi, which was twice as good as the superior-level medicine master of the Imperial Court of Yunyang, who could formulate a Qi-gathering elixir that doubled the sensitivity to Qi. Khanate elixir was as important to Khanate adepts as Qi-gathering elixir was to Qi-gathering adept. Of course, no matter how good the Qi-gathering elixir was, it was almost useless to Khanate adepts, because the Qi-gathering elixir was only a supplementary medicine for Qi-gathering adepts. Once one entered the Khanate stage, the method of practice changed, and the sensitivity to Qi was almost at its peak. No matter how many Qi-gathering elixirs one consumed, the sensitivity to Qi would not increase. Zhou Donghuang nodded lightly. I have just entered the Khanate stage, and do not have any Khanate elixir on hand. I am preparing to make some. Master, if these are all the herbs needed to make Khanate elixir, then I am afraid there is something wrong with your formula. Sumo glanced at the herbs written on the paper again, frowning slightly. There is nothing wrong. Zhou Donghuang said lightly. Master, many of the herbs you have written here have conflicting medicinal properties. If you mix them together, I am afraid it will cause considerable harm to the body. Sumo's frown deepened. As the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters, don't you know that, as long as the balance of conflicting medicinal properties is well controlled, not only will it not harm the body, but it can even have a miraculous effect? Zhou Donghuang glanced at Sumo casually. Hearing Zhou Donghuang's words, Sumo was stunned at first, and then he could not help but gasp. Master, you mean you can control the balance of them? As far as he knew, to control the balance of conflicting medicinal properties, not to mention the balance of multiple conflicting medicinal properties, even the balance of two conflicting medicinal properties could only be achieved by a heaven-level medicine master. Zhou Donghuang replied once again and said somewhat impatiently, All right, you can go now, prepare those herbs for me as soon as possible, I have an urgent need for them. Ever since he had entered the Khanate stage, Zhou Donghuang had wanted to make Khanate elixir to aid in his practice. However, in the country of Yunyang, it was very difficult to gather the herbs needed to make the Khanate elixir, so it had been delayed until now. In fact, the reason he had thought of coming to the Valley of Medicine Masters was that the Valley of Medicine Masters could provide him with the herbs needed to make the Khanate elixir, and at the same time, he wanted to further understand the situation on Ziyun planet. In his previous life, after he had attained the primal core stage and left Earth, although he had returned to Ziyun planet, he had not gone anywhere else but to Yunyang country. He only knew that Yunyang country was one of the 16 countries of the East Valley, and that the area surrounding the 16 countries of the East Valley was the territory of a sect called the Valley of Medicine Masters. He knew nothing else about the situation on Ziyun planet. Yes. Seeing that the youth was getting impatient, Sumo hurriedly acknowledged and retreated, but his heart was still filled with shock. If he can really control the balance of the conflicting medicinal properties of those herbs, the Khanate elixir he makes can retain at least 30% of Qi. Qi-gathering adepts relied on the Qi-gathering elixir to practice and increase their sensitivity to Qi, thereby increasing the speed of practice. Khanate stage adepts, on the other hand, did not need to use the Qi-gathering elixir because their sensitivity to Qi had reached its upper limit. However, Khanate stage adepts, although their sensitivity to Qi had reached its upper limit and they could absorb as much spirit as possible and convert it into Qi for practice, it was difficult to retain even 10% of the converted Qi. Once they used the Khanate elixir, they could increase the retention of Qi. Originally, it was difficult to retain even 10%, but with the power of the Khanate elixir, they could retain an additional 10% or even 20% of qi. For example, as an Earth-level medicine master, the Khanate elixir formulated by Su Mo could increase the retention of qi to 15%. This was already a very high retention rate. After Su Mo left, Zhou Dongwang returned to the wooden hut and prepared to practice. The furnishings in the wooden hut had obviously been cleaned every once in a while. Although there was some dust, it was not much. Sitting cross-legged on the wooden bed, Zhou Dongwang's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself, "If I only rely on the Lord of the Four Supremes to practice, I can only retain 50% of the qi converted from spirit, and once I formulate the Khanate elixir, I can increase the retention of qi by 40%, allowing me to retain 90% of qi during practice." As he thought of this, Zhou Dongwang's eyes shone with anticipation. "However, I never thought that the Khanate portion of the Lord of the Four Supremes would be so powerful, directly retaining 50% of qi. Even top-notch techniques, such as the Thousand-Star Sword technique, the Fiery Thunder Training Regimen, and the Manual of Unruffled Sage, can only retain 40% of qi at the Khanate stage. I've heard of techniques that can retain 50% of qi at the Khanate stage in my previous life, but they usually only exist in legends. I never thought that such a legendary technique could be found on Earth." Chapter 143. It had to be said that Su Mo was very efficient. The next day, he had brought all the herbs that Zhou Dongwang needed to Zhou Dongwang, as well as the tools that Zhou Dongwang needed to formulate the elixir. "Not bad." Seeing Su Missouri place the herbs and tools on the table, Zhou Dongwang nodded in satisfaction and immediately got off the bed to come to the table. "Master, are you starting to formulate the Khanate elixir?" Seeing Zhou Dongwang pick up the tools and weigh them, then look at the pile of herbs, Su Mo's eyes could not help but light up, but then they dimmed and he turned to leave. "Master, I'll excuse myself." "Who said you could excuse yourself?" Zhou Dongwang said lightly. Hearing the youth's words, Su Mo stopped in his tracks and turned back to look at the youth. "Master, you mean I can observe you formulate the elixir?" As he spoke, Su Mo's eyes shone brightly, full of anticipation. It must be known that most medicine masters, including himself, would not allow anyone to observe unless the person present was their own direct disciple. First, they were afraid that someone would steal the formula, and second, they were afraid that someone would steal the special technique. Zhou Dongwang responded lightly and then ignored Su Mo. He picked up the herbs and tools and began to formulate the Khanate elixir he needed. At first, Su Mo thought that the youth's movements were ordinary. But as time passed, he realized that the youth's speed was as fast as lightning, and even his hands seemed to become a blur, dazzling a late Khanate adept like him. If it had been any other youth who said that he could produce Khanate elixir, Su Mo would not have believed it. But the youth before him could not be compared to any other youth. Which youth had the ability to suppress a late Khanate adept like him and force him to acknowledge him as his master. Because of this, when the youth said that he wanted to formulate the Khanate elixir, he did not doubt that the youth could produce it, but was shocked by the herbs that the youth wanted him to gather. Many of the herbs had conflicting properties, and even an ordinary heaven-level medicine master would find it difficult to maintain a balance between them in the process of formulating the same medicine. However, although Su Mo did not doubt the youth's ability, he was still shocked by the youth's method of formulating the elixir. This was the first time he had seen such a swift and mysterious technique. It was as if all the medicinal herbs had come to life in the hands of the youth. After about 15 minutes, Zhou Dongwang stopped. He had prepared 12 bottles of Khanate elixir with the herbs that Su Mo had brought. "Are you done?" Su Mo was dumbfounded. It had only been a quarter of an hour, right? Even an earth-rank apothecary like him would need at least an hour to concoct the Xiantian elixir in his best condition. But now, the young man before him had only spent a quarter of an hour. Moreover, in the process of concocting the Xiantian elixir, he had used several medicinal herbs with conflicting medicinal properties, as if balancing the medicinal properties of those medicinal herbs was a piece of cake for him. I won't take advantage of you either. Zhou Dongwang picked up a bottle of connate elixir and poured it into his mouth. After swallowing it, he kept 9 bottles of connate elixir and left the other 2 bottles on the table. You give me this amount of herbs, and I'll give you 2 bottles of connate elixir. Without waiting for Su Mo's reply, he returned to the wooden bed to practice. Waves of golden light emanated from his body, not only enveloping him, but even reaching out to envelop the golden-crowned eagle Big Gold, who was practicing outside the wooden hut. Of course, it only enveloped him and Big Gold, and not Su Mo inside the cave. The walls of the cave were inlaid with luminous pearls, so that even though the cave was in the middle of the mountain, it was still extremely bright. These luminous pearls ranged from the size of a fist to the size of an egg. They were extremely valuable, but here they were only used for illumination, and the light of the luminous pearls also merged with the power of the Buddhist essence, and naturally transformed into a golden Buddha light. Master, then I'll take my leave. Although he was puzzled by the rising golden light from Zhou Donghuang's body, Su Mo did not dare to ask too many questions. He picked up the 2 bottles of connate elixir on the table and left. Then, he immediately returned to his residence, swallowed 1 bottle of connate elixir, and began to practice. After a while, Su Mo, who had been practicing with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes, and they were filled with shock and disbelief. 40%? After swallowing that bottle of connate elixir, when I practice, the retention rate of qi has increased by an additional 40%. Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Although Su Mo had been mentally prepared for this, and had thought that the connate elixir that the youth had formulated would increase the retention rate of qi by at least 30%, it would at least increase it by 30%. But now, he realized that he had underestimated the youth. An additional 40% increase in the retention rate of qi. The connate elixir that I formulated can only increase the retention rate of qi by 16%. That is to say, if I have an endless supply of this connate elixir in the future, the speed of my practice in the future will be nearly 2 times faster than before. At this thought, Su Mo sucked in a breath of cold air, and his eyes shone brightly as his face twitched in excitement. He just said, for every 12 bottles of connate elixir that I give him, he will give me 2 bottles. At this thought, Su Mo stopped practicing, walked out of his room, and gathered a few of the elders in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. He gave them orders to gather all the herbs that the youth needed. Although there were still many herbs in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, he felt that it was far from enough, and he wanted more. In the next few decades, if I continue to use this connate elixir to practice, I have a 90% chance of breaking through the connate shackles, entering the primal core stage, and becoming a primal core adept. Su Mo was extremely excited. To him, there was nothing more important than entering the primal core stage and becoming a primal core adept. Once he became a primal core adept, his lifespan would be extended to 300 years, and he would have nearly 200 more years to spend. That was also his life's goal. It seems that this master of mine has made the right choice. If Su Mo had previously been completely forced to acknowledge Zhou Donghuang as his master, then now, he felt that he had made the right choice. In the past, with the connate elixir that he had formulated, he had less than a 10% chance of entering the primal core stage and becoming a primal core adept. But now, with the connate elixir that his master had formulated, he had more than a 90% chance of entering the primal core stage and becoming a primal core adept. To Zhou Donghuang, giving Su Mo 2 bottles of connate elixir was more to motivate Su Mo to help him gather the herbs to formulate the connate elixir. Now, with the help of the Buddhist essence and the connate elixir, Zhou Donghuang's level of practice was even faster. With this level of practice, In at most a month's time, I will definitely enter the middle Khanate stage. Zhou Donghuang was very satisfied with his current rate of practice. Of course, if he concentrated on practicing, there would always be times when it got boring. At this time, if he continued to practice, the results would not be much better, and it might even drag down his future practice. As someone with 1,000 years of memories from his past life, Zhou Donghuang naturally knew how to solve this problem. Going out for a walk and completely relaxing before continuing to practice would be more effective than continuing to practice. I've been in the Valley of the Medicine Masters for some time. I haven't gone out yet. With this thought, Zhou Donghuang left the cave abode and walked out of the cave. As for the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, although it had discovered that the Buddhist light that could help it speed up its practice had disappeared, it was still immersed in practice, working hard to enter the Khanate stage and become a Khanate demon. After walking out of the cave, Zhou Donghuang followed the small path in front of the cave and walked onto one of the main roads in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. At the beginning, he did not see anyone along the way. And along the way, his position was in the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, and it was also relatively secluded. Gradually, as he walked out of the secluded corner of the valley, he saw some disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters shuttling back and forth at various intersections. Among these disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there were young men, young women, middle-aged women, and women. Occasionally, a few elderly people could be seen. Of course, the elderly people might not necessarily be elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, but they might just be disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. In the Valley of the Medicine Masters, being older only meant that one was older, but it did not mean that one's status in the Valley of the Medicine Masters was achieved through one's martial ability. Hi. I don't think I've seen you before. Did you just enter the Valley of the Medicine Masters recently? Zhou Donghuang had been walking quietly by himself when suddenly, a voice came from not far away, and a youth who looked to be about 16 or 17 years old walked towards him. The youth was dressed in blue, and his features could not be considered handsome, but he could be considered delicate and pleasing to the eye. He greeted Zhou Donghuang in a friendly manner. "I'm Huang Mingfeng, what about you?" Zhou Donghuang only glanced at the young man in blue, who was acting friendly, before looking away. He had no intention of responding to him, and continued walking along the main road. "Hey! I say, why are you so rude? Didn't you hear me talking to you?" Huang Mingfeng said unhappily as he caught up with Zhou Donghuang and walked side by side with him. "Do you know where Chen Dandan lives?" Zhou Donghuang glanced at Huang Mingfeng as he asked. "Chen Dandan?" Huang Mingfeng was taken aback at first, but then he shook his head. "You rascal, although you're not bad-looking, if you want to pursue Sister Chen Dandan because of that, I'm afraid that's not very realistic." "Who said I wanted to pursue her?" Zhou Donghuang was taken aback for a moment, and then he laughed disdainfully. That Chen Dandan was worthy of him, Zhou Donghuang pursuing? What a joke. Chapter 144. If you're not wooing her, why are you asking where she lives? Hearing Zhou Donghuang's words, Huang Mingfeng's face was full of disbelief, and his eyes were filled with suspicion. "I'm asking where she lives because I'm going to settle old scores with her." Zhou Donghuang's eyes narrowed slightly as he spoke calmly. "Settle old scores with Chen Dandan?" After looking at Zhou Donghuang seriously and confirming that he did not seem to be joking, Huang Mingfeng shook his head and said, "Brother, although I don't like that Chen Dandan either, but that Chen Dandan is not someone ordinary disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters like us can afford to offend. Her father is the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe. The second elder is a mid-Khanate stage adept, and his ability is so strong that he can even be ranked in the top 5 of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Although I don't know what grudge you have with Chen Dandan, I advise you to let go of it." Huang Mingfeng's words were earnest and well-meaning. The second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe? The corner of Zhou Donghuang's mouth had unknowingly turned up in an arc, and there was a hint of disdain in it. You don't have to care about anything else, just tell me, do you know where she lives? She usually stays at the second elder's place. Seeing that the youth not only did not heed his warning but continued to inquire about Chen Danden's residence after hearing his warning, Huang Mingfeng could not help but regard the youth in a higher light. This handsome youth dressed in a snow-white robe, with an extraordinary aura, could it be that he had some powerful background and was not afraid of the second elder, Chen Tianhe, who was backing Chen Danden? Because under such circumstances, anyone who could still be so confident was either truly confident or deliberately mystifying. And the person before him did not seem to be the latter. But when I came over from the training grounds just now, I happened to see Chen Danden sparring with someone there. I think she should still be there now and has not returned. Youths like to watch a show, and seeing that Zhou Donghuang was not the least bit afraid after knowing Chen Danden's background, Huang Mingfeng naturally thought that Zhou Donghuang had an even more powerful background. Training grounds? Where to? Zhou Donghuang's eyes flashed as he asked. Over there. Huang Mingfeng turned his head to look at one of the forks in the road and pointed into the distance. Go this way. After walking for a while, you'll see another road on the right. Forget it, I have nothing to do now. I'll take you there. With that, Huang Mingfeng beckoned to Zhou Donghuang and led the way. Zhou Donghuang followed. Brother, you haven't told me your name yet. Huang Mingfeng turned to look at Zhou Donghuang and asked. Zhou Donghuang. Zhou Donghuang said lightly. Brother Donghuang, how did you become enemies with Chen Danden? Huang Mingfeng asked again. As far as I know, she has just arrived at the Valley of the Medicine Masters not long ago, and is the daughter of the second elder who was stranded outside. It is said that she grew up in a small place in the country of Yunyang. That small place is so small that we can't even imagine it. In that small place, even a mere level 2 adept of qi gathering can rule over a small area. Once Huang Mingfeng opened his mouth, it was as if he could not stop talking. It is said that it was a small preeminent family in an inferior county city that helped second elder find her. Then, that small preeminent family's young master even became second elder's disciple. Hong Yunfei? Zhou Donghuang asked. Yes, it is Hong Yunfei. Huang Mingfeng nodded, his face full of surprise. Brother, so you know that Hong Yunfei. But it is a pity that Hong Yunfei originally thought that by following Chen Danden, he would be able to climb the social ladder of the second elder, but who would have thought that after the second elder and Chen Danden acknowledged each other as father and daughter, Chen Danden chased him out of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. That Chen Danden is really ungrateful. Even if she did not want to be close to Hong Yunfei, he still helped her find her biological father. Surely she would not burn the bridge after crossing it? As he spoke, Huang Mingfeng shook his head. That Chen Danden is not bad-looking, but her character is really not good. Snakes and scorpions, the ancients did not lie. Hearing Huang Mingfeng say that Hong Yunfei had been chased out of the Valley of the Medicine Masters by Chen Danden, Zhou Donghuang was not surprised. With Chen Danden's character, after finding out that her father was the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, it was naturally impossible for her to continue being with Hong Yunfei. But what he did not expect was, Chen Danden had actually chased Hong Yunfei out of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Brother, you still haven't told me, how did you become enemies with that Chen Danden? Huang Mingfeng asked again. It can't be considered a feud, I can only say that she owes my mother quite a bit of debt. Zhou Donghuang's eyes flashed, and his tone became cold in an instant. I am going to collect my debt. It was time for Chen Danden to collect the debt that she owed his mother, Lin Lan. Your mother? Huang Mingfeng was taken aback and asked again, Brother, who exactly are you? How did that Chen Danden owe your mother a debt? Did she owe it before she returned to the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Huang Mingfeng had too many questions in his heart now. Is the training grounds just ahead? At the same time, Zhou Donghuang happened to be following Huang Mingfeng along another main road in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. At this time, his field of vision also widened, and he could see the vast field in the middle of the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located. In that vast field, a sparse crowd was gathered everywhere, and in the midst of the crowd, there were two figures flashing about, obviously sparring. Of course, there were also some people gathered in a corner of that vast field, either sitting or standing, talking and laughing, obviously chatting about everything under the sun. Not bad. Huang Mingfeng nodded in response, and at the same time, he further realized that this unfamiliar youth must have indeed just arrived in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, otherwise it would be impossible for him not to know about the training grounds of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Now, there is still some time before the Valley of the Medicine Masters recruits disciples from the 16 countries of the East Valley, and I am from the previous batch of new disciples who passed the assessment of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. And if he has just arrived in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, it means that he has been specially recruited by the higher-ups of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Huang Mingfeng's heart skipped a beat. For example, that Chen Dandan, and the previous Hong Yunfei, can be considered to have been specially recruited by Second Elder Chen Tianhe. In the Valley of the Medicine Masters, as long as the higher-ups of the middle Khanate stage and above have the privilege of recruiting people from outside the Valley of the Medicine Masters, of course, after any of the higher-ups of the Valley of the Medicine Masters specially recruited people, they also have to be responsible for the people they have recruited. For example, that Hong Yunfei, after being specially recruited by Second Elder, became Second Elder's disciple. Huang Mingfeng thought for a while, and when he came back to his senses, he realized. The youth dressed in clothes whiter than snow had already walked a long distance, and was even not far from the training grounds in the distance. Immediately, he hurriedly chased after him, shouting as he ran, "Brother Donghuang, wait for me!" The training grounds in the middle of the valley, where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, occupied a vast area, and the terrain was relatively high. Surrounding it were 4 long stone steps that led to the 4 winding roads in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, leading directly to the mountain gate. Chen Dandan. Stepping onto the stone steps to the training grounds, Zhou Donghuang's calm gaze swept across the surroundings, and after a moment, his gaze fell on a group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters gathered together. Through the gaps in the crowd, with his current eyesight, he directly locked onto the young girl sparring with a youth in the crowd. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dressed in a long light green dress, the young girl with delicate and pretty features, with a steady pace, approached a youth who looked slightly younger than her. At first, they were evenly matched, but gradually she gained the upper hand. Based on the current situation, it was only a matter of time before the young girl won. "Junior Sister Dandan, you're really amazing. She's indeed the daughter of Second Elder. She's already so powerful not long after returning to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Like father, like daughter." The crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, seeing that the young girl had gained the upper hand, began to speak one after another, not stingy with their words of praise. Although Chen Dandan grew up in a small place, her martial arts talent is extraordinary. Not long after returning to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, she had a series of breakthroughs in her practice, and now she has attained level 4 of Qi gathering. Huang Mingfeng, who had caught up with Zhou Donghuang, saw that Zhou Donghuang's gaze had fallen on Chen Dandan in the crowd, and spoke at the right time. Of course, this is also because Second Elder has invested many rare herbs in her body. Bang! As Huang Mingfeng finished speaking, in the crowd, Chen Dandan's palm landed very forcefully on the youth's chest, knocking him back and causing his body to tremble as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. "Senior Sister Dandan, I concede defeat." It was just a spar, yet he was injured to such an extent. Although there was anger in the depths of the young man's eyes, He did not dare to show it on the surface because he was afraid of the second elder behind the young lady in front of him. He humbly cupped his hands and bowed his head. And now, Chen Dandan was like a proud peacock, glancing at the youth indifferently before looking away and walking away from the crowd. "Junior Sister Dandan, wait for me." Two voices spoke at the same time, and two young men walked out from the crowd to keep up with Chen Dandan, like two inseparable followers. However, they very quickly realized that the young girl who had been striding out of the arena had suddenly stopped in her tracks. For a moment, they subconsciously looked forward. Not far in front of them stood two youths. They had an impression of one of the youths, who was also a disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, named Huang Mingfeng. But this was the first time they had seen the other handsome youth dressed in clothes whiter than snow. Zhou Donghuang? The reason why Chen Dandan suddenly stopped in her tracks was because she saw someone she would never have dreamt of appearing here, the youth who had grown up with her, Zhou Donghuang. "Why are you here?" Chen Dandan's gaze turned cold as she questioned in a cold voice. End of this chapter. Chapter 145. As she questioned him coldly, Chen Dandan's gaze never left the person before her. Dressed in clothes whiter than snow, the handsome face in her memory had lost most of its previous childishness, and his features were sharp, making him look even more handsome and charming. In addition, the youth was already a head taller than her, and she had to look up at him. Most importantly, now that she was looking at the youth, she could faintly sense that the youth exuded a transcendent aura, causing her to involuntarily feel a sense of inferiority. Even the most outstanding disciples of the younger generation of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had not given her such a feeling. This kind of feeling also made Chen Dandan extremely annoyed. She, Chen Dandan, was the daughter of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe, and was the pride of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. This Zhou Donghuang was only a country bumpkin from the inferior prefecture of the western ridge of the Chu King in the country of Yunyang. What right did he have to make Chen Dandan feel so inferior? "Who brought you to the Valley of the Medicine Masters?" Without waiting for Zhou Donghuang to speak, Chen Dandan asked a second time. In her opinion, the reason why Zhou Donghuang could appear here was definitely because someone had brought him here, bypassing the people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who were in contact with the country of Yunyang. It was impossible that he had come here through the people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who were in contact with the country of Yunyang. This was because the person who was in contact with the country of Yunyang was her father, the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe. However, faced with Chen Dandan's question, Zhou Donghuang did not respond to her, but said casually, "Chen Dandan, it looks like you are doing well in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. You have already attained level 4 of Qi gathering." As he said this, the corners of Zhou Donghuang's mouth turned up in a mocking smile. Chen Dandan attaining level 4 of Qi gathering at this age was enough to cause a sensation in the country of Yunyang. But in his eyes, it was not even worth mentioning. Even his sister Yunlu, who was only 11 this year, had already far surpassed Chen Dandan's level of martial practice. "How about it? Are you interested in sparring with me?" Zhou Donghuang asked with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Faced with the challenge of the youth before her, Chen Dandan's expression immediately darkened. Although she was now a level 4 adept, and her progress was much faster than before, she was still a level 4 adept. However, she knew that she was no match for the youth in front of her. Back when she was still in the Hong family of the Yunfeng prefecture capital, she had heard that this youth had killed the head elder of the Lin family, Lin Tianjing, who was also a preeminent family like the Hong family. And Lin Tianjing was a level 4 adept. 2 years had passed since then. In these 2 years, the young man's strength must have grown even stronger. Even if he hadn't become stronger, the youth's strength from 2 years ago wasn't something she could contend with. "Zhou Donghuang, don't be so smug." Chen Dandan's gaze on Zhou Donghuang grew colder and colder. She said in a low voice, In the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there are many strong practitioners. There are many people who can defeat you. Chun Danden's words were tantamount to admitting to the people around her that her strength was not as good as Zhou Donghuang's, and she did not dare to exchange blows with him. Looks like this brother Donghuang's strength is not bad, at least above level 5 of Qi gathering. Huang Mingfeng, who was standing not far from Zhou Donghuang, could not help but guess in his heart when he saw Chen Danden like this. Is that so? Zhou Donghuang glanced at Chen Danden indifferently, his expression indifferent. This time, before Chen Danden could respond to Zhou Donghuang, the two youths behind Chen Danden had already taken 2 steps forward and stood on either side of Chen Danden, glaring at Zhou Donghuang. Lad, who exactly are you? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of Sister Danden? One of the youths asked in a low voice. A debt collector. Zhou Donghuang did not even look at the youth's question, his gaze never leaving Chen Danden. Now he grinned and spoke unhurriedly. A debt collector? The youth was taken aback. Lad, you're also a disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters? I've never seen you before. Who specially recruited you? The other youth asked with a serious expression. In the Valley of the Medicine Masters, those who had the authority to specially recruit were all senior figures of the middle Khanate stage and above. If the youth in front of them had been specially recruited, it meant that he had a senior figure of the middle Khanate stage of the Valley of the Medicine Masters behind him. I'm not a disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Zhou Donghuang's tone was indifferent, but he still did not look at the other youth who had questioned him, his gaze never leaving Chen Danden. I'm also not interested in entering the Valley of the Medicine Masters. At this point, Zhou Donghuang paused and looked deeply at Chen Danden. Some people may think that with the Valley of the Medicine Masters as a backer, they can fly up the branches and become phoenixes. However, in my eyes, the Valley of the Medicine Masters is nothing at all. To the extent that I, Zhou Donghuang, do not even deign to enter a small sect like the Valley of the Medicine Masters. As Zhou Donghuang's words fell, not only were Chen Danden and the two youths stunned, even Huang Mingfeng, who had followed Zhou Donghuang here, and the group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had heard the commotion, were also stunned. This youth actually said that he did not deign to enter the Valley of the Medicine Masters? And said that the Valley of the Medicine Masters was a small sect? What arrogance! Chen Danden laughed coldly, then looked sharply at the youth. Zhou Donghuang, from what you're saying, you did not come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters because someone brought you here, but you came here on your own? This is the Valley of the Medicine Masters. I come and go as I please. Why would I need someone to bring me here? Zhou Donghuang said lightly. Zhou Donghuang. Almost as soon as Zhou Donghuang finished speaking, Chen Danden glared at Zhou Donghuang and shouted sternly, How dare you trespass into the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Trespass into the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Hearing Chen Danden's words, the group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had gathered around were in an uproar, and their gazes towards the youth who was confronting Chen Danden became somewhat unfriendly. Young fellow, you're really capable to be able to avoid the observation of the observation tower elders and trespass into the Valley of the Medicine Masters. One of the youths beside Chen Danden stepped forward, looking coldly at Zhou Donghuang. According to the rules of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, trespassers of the Valley of the Medicine Masters will either have their practice crippled or be sentenced to death. On account of your youth and ignorance, I'll cripple your practice, then you can crawl out of the Valley of the Medicine Masters yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, the youth's arms shook without warning, and his legs moved as well. His entire body seemed to transform into a cheetah in an instant, rushing towards Zhou Donghuang. Humph! Almost as soon as the youth rushed out, Zhou Donghuang let out a cold snort. The cold snort, in the ears of the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, did not sound like much, but when it pierced the ears of the youth who was rushing towards Zhou Donghuang, it caused his expression to change dramatically, and his body shook violently as his feet stopped abruptly. Whoosh! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the youth who had just started sprinting towards Zhou Donghuang fell head first to the ground in the middle of his charge, and his body scraped against the ground as he fell unconscious. Dazzling blood flowed down from his ears, neither too fast nor too slow, just like a stream in a small stream. This is an acoustic attack technique. Among the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there was no lack of experienced and knowledgeable people, and seeing the youth injured to such a state in the blink of an eye, their expressions changed drastically, and their gazes towards the youth in white standing with his hands clasped behind his back were filled with fear. Just now, in the instant that the youth had moved, Zhou Donghuang had used an acoustic attack technique called Lion's Roar that he had obtained on Earth in his previous life. Although Lion's Roar was only a second-grade technique, with Zhou Donghuang's current level of practice, he could easily kill a weaker Qi-gathering adept with a wave of his hand. Just now, if he had not used all his strength to use Lion's Roar, the youth would definitely have died. The youth was only a level 6 adept of Qi-gathering. How is this possible? The scene before her caused Chen Dandan to turn pale. She would never have dreamed that a level 6 adept of Qi-gathering would be injured and knocked unconscious by Zhou Donghuang's cold snort before he could even get close to him. An acoustic attack technique? Since when has an acoustic attack technique become so strong? Kuhui is, after all, a level 6 adept, but he was knocked unconscious just like that. Even if the acoustic attack technique he used was a second-grade technique, to knock a level 6 adept unconscious, even if the latter was unprepared, he would have to be at least a level 8 adept. Him? A level 8 adept? He looks to be at most 17 or 18 years old, a 17 or 18-year-old level 8 adept of Qi-gathering. Are you kidding? As the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters discussed animatedly, they looked at the youth again as if they had seen a monster, their eyes filled with disbelief. Level 8 of Qi-gathering? Chen Dandan's expression changed, and the youth beside her broke out in cold sweat, glad that he had not been the first to step forward. Otherwise, the one lying on the ground now would not be Kuhui, but him. His level of practice was about the same as Kuhui's. Go and get elderly. Chen Dandan took a deep breath and suppressed her agitated emotions with much difficulty. She whispered to the youth beside her, "Tell elderly that someone has trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters." The elderly that Chen Dandan spoke of was the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who was in charge of maintaining order in the arena. He was a Khanate stage adept, and his residence was near the arena. Usually, he would occasionally patrol the arena, but most of the time, he would practice in his residence. All right. The youth acknowledged and left in a hurry. After the youth left, Chen Dandan looked at Zhou Donghuang again with a tinge of fear, but her gaze and expression were as cold as ever. Zhou Donghuang, I did not expect you to have already attained level 8 of Qi-gathering. Unfortunately, even if you have attained level 8 of Qi-gathering, you are destined to die here today. End of this chapter. Chapter 146. Now, although Chen Dandan looked fierce on the surface, she was actually just putting on a brave front. After all, the youth before her was already a level 8 adept, and if he attacked her before elderly arrived, she would not be able to defend herself. No wonder you are the daughter of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, deciding life and death so easily. Zhou Donghuang laughed coldly and took a step forward, walking towards Chen Dandan. His speed was not considered fast, but every step he took felt like he was stepping on Chen Dandan's chest, causing her expression to change again and again. What are you doing? Chen Dandan's expression changed, and she looked at Zhou Donghuang with fear. I just said, I am here to collect a debt. In a moment, Zhou Donghuang was already in front of Chen Dandan, smiling brightly, revealing 2 rows of teeth. When Chen Dandan saw this brilliant smile, she was so frightened that her body trembled. As someone who had grown up with the youth before her, she naturally knew that this smile of the youth before her was not a sign of happiness, but a sign of extreme anger. Almost as soon as Zhou Donghuang finished speaking, Chen Danden's expression changed again, and Zhou Donghuang casually waved his hand, striking a palm at Chen Danden's chest. No, Chen Danden's expression changed, but with her level of practice, she was completely unable to dodge Zhou Donghuang's palm. Stop! A few of the stronger disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who were above level 8 of Qi gathering, had originally intended to stop the youth who had attacked Chen Danden, but when they saw the foot of green light suddenly erupt from the youth's palm, their throats seemed to be violently strangled, and the words that they had just opened their mouths were cut off abruptly. Of the two words stop, he only said the word stop. Bang! Zhou Donghuang's palm landed on Chen Danden's chest, and the green light in his hand dissipated, and Chen Danden was knocked back 2 steps. Her face alternated between green and red, and a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. A Khanate stage adept? Just now that was the release of Qi. Now, the attention of the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was not on the injured Chen Danden, but on the young man dressed in a robe whiter than snow. Just now, when the young man struck out with his palm, the green radiance on his palm was a foot long. And this was the sign of the early Xian Tian stage. This youth, who looked to be about 17 or 18 years old, was actually an early Khanate stage adept? Is he really a Khanate cultivator? A Xian Tian cultivator's palm strike only made junior sister Chen Danden retreat 2 steps? Even a level 8 adept would not be able to make junior sister Danden take only 2 steps back with a casual blow from a Khanate adept. He's obviously holding back. At the same time, some people began to wonder why Zhou Donghuang's palm had only caused Chen Danden to retreat 2 steps, but they all felt that Zhou Donghuang had intentionally held back. You crippled my meridians? Although Chen Danden was also shocked by Zhou Donghuang's ability to release his qi, when she subconsciously tried to activate the qi in her body, she found that it was scattered everywhere and could not be gathered. At the same time, she felt an intense pain in her meridians. Coupled with the fact that Zhou Donghuang's palm had not hit her with much force, it was not difficult for her to guess that Zhou Donghuang had not intended to hurt her, but had only intended to cripple her meridians. Immediately, Chen Danden's eyes revealed a look of despair. She knew very well what it meant to have one's meridians crippled. It meant that she would be a martial invalid for the rest of her life. She had thought that by becoming the daughter of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, she would be able to become a phoenix. She had not expected that just as her level of practice was improving rapidly, and she had a chance of attaining the Khanate stage, that youth who had been her childhood sweetheart had come knocking on her door and directly crippled her meridians. Even in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, where there were many Khanate adepts, there was nothing that could be done to save her meridians. He crippled junior sister Chen Danden's meridians? My God! He has completely offended the second elder behind junior sister Danden. I was wondering why he had held back just now, or it turns out that his palm was not intended to hurt junior sister Danden, but mainly to cripple her practice. If I were junior sister Danden, given a choice, I would rather be bedridden for a few months than have my practice crippled. Faced with such a choice, wouldn't anyone choose to be bedridden for a few months? The surrounding crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were shocked. They had never imagined that the youth before them would be so valiant as to cripple Chen Danden's practice with one blow. It must be known that Chen Danden was no ordinary person. She was the daughter of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe. Moreover, because the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe, had no children, he doted on Chen Danden, his long-lost daughter, to the core. This was also the reason why Chen Danden had attained level 4 of Qi gathering not long after she had arrived in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The second elder had spent a lot of precious medicines on his daughter. From this, it could be seen how much he doted on his daughter. The most important thing was, the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was a middle Khanate stage adept. Even if the youth before them was an early Khanate stage adept, he would definitely not be a match for the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. When the disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Huang Mingfeng, once again looked at the youth in white with his back to him, his eyes narrowed, and his face showed an indescribable shock. He had never imagined the youth before him was actually an early Khanate stage adept. Even more unexpected, the youth before him, with one blow, had crippled Chen Danden's practice. This was practically an unforgivable affront to the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Zhou Dongwang, you deserve to die. When Chen Dandan looked at the youth again, her eyes were bloodshot, and she became even more like a shrew, pouncing on the youth with her claws and fangs bared. At this moment, she had completely forgotten about the outburst of qi that the youth had just displayed. There was only one thought in her mind: revenge. Bang! This time, Zhou Dongwang did not activate his qi. With a casual kick, he sent Chen Dandan flying 3 or 4 meters before landing on the ground. Even without using qi, Zhou Dongwang had an extreme muscular strength of more than 1,000 pounds, and dealing with the crippled Chen Dandan was a piece of cake. Wah! After Chen Dandan's body landed on the ground, her injuries were even more serious than before. After spitting out another mouthful of blood, she stared with bloodthirsty hatred at the youth in the spotless white robe and said through gritted teeth, "Zhou Dongwang, you crippled my practice. My father will definitely not let you off. I will get my father to capture you, and I will cut you into 1,000 pieces with my own hands." Now, Chen Dandan was completely blinded by hatred, and she screamed hysterically, as if she had completely forgotten that the situation before her was completely in the hands of the youth. "Cut me into 1,000 pieces?" Zhou Dongwang smiled, and then his expression suddenly turned cold. "Do you believe that, before your father arrives, I can kill you?" As soon as Zhou Dongwang said this, Chen Dandan shuddered in fear, and her expression changed drastically. Only then did she realize that the youth now had the absolute advantage, and could even kill her before her father arrived. "Elder Li is here." And just then, there was a commotion in the crowd of onlookers, and a group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters parted to make a path. An old man in a light green robe walked in, escorted by the young man who had originally been by Chen Dandan's side as her protector. "Elder Li." Seeing the old man, the ferocious Chen Dandan's eyes lit up, and she hurriedly said to the old man, "This Zhou Dongwang not only trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters, but he also injured Kuhui and crippled my meridians." "What?" The expression of the old man, who had been calm and collected, changed drastically upon hearing Chen Dandan's words. He had already known about Kuhui's injury, but he had never imagined that during the time he had been here, this youth who had trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters had actually crippled Chen Dandan's practice. Chen Dandan was no ordinary disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. She was the daughter of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. "Elder Li, he is an early Khanate stage adept. Hold him down, don't let him escape." As the old man's expression changed, Chen Dandan reminded him at the right time. Although she did not want to believe that the youth was a Khanate stage adept, when the youth had attacked just now, the qi that he had emitted from his palm showed that he had already entered the Khanate stage. Khanate stage? As Chen Dandan's words fell, both the old man who had just arrived and the young man who had escorted the old man back were shocked into a daze. They looked at the youth in front of them, their eyes full of disbelief. "Sister Dandan, you must be mistaken? He, a youth of at most 17 or 18 years old, is a Khanate stage adept?" The young man was the first to speak up. "When he attacked me just now, he emitted a qi of qi." Everyone present saw it clearly. Chen Dandan was not surprised by the young man's doubts, and as she glared hatefully at the youth, she spoke in a dark tone. "Sister Dandan is right. He is indeed a connate stage adept. When he attacked just now, he emitted a chi of chi. He is an early connate stage adept. When the group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters all spoke up to confirm, without a single other voice, even if the old man and the young man did not believe it, they had no choice but to believe it. Elderly, you are the same as him, an early connate stage adept. You may not be able to defeat him. You hold him down, Zhong Yuntao. Go get my father here. Chun Dandan said to the old man and the young man. The young man acknowledged and left, and the old man also hurried forward a few steps, staring at the youth fiercely. You, who are you? Why have you trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters? And why did you injure Kuhui, a disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and why did you cripple Chen Dandan's practice? End of this chapter. Chapter 147. The old man stared fiercely at the youth, and the moment he opened his mouth, he asked a series of questions. Of course, at the same time he questioned, his eyes involuntarily revealed a hint of fear. A young connate stage cultivator. In the history of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, such a person had never appeared before. Because of this, he was deeply afraid that the youth in front of him came from a powerful force that was above the Valley of the Medicine Masters, a force that the Valley of the Medicine Masters dared not offend. Who am I? Zhou Donghuang glanced at the old man casually, and then looked at the young girl who had just stood up with difficulty and was glaring at him with hatred. He said lightly, "She knows best who I am, why don't you just ask her? HM?" Hearing this, the old man immediately looked at the young girl. "Miss Dandan, do you know who he is?" "Of course I do." Chen Dandan gritted her teeth. "He is from the country of Yunyang. Furthermore, he was born and raised in a small town in an inferior prefecture in the western ridge of the Chu King in the country of Yunyang. I watched him grow up. Elderly, don't worry, he has no status or background, and it was only luck that allowed him to have this level of martial practice at the age of 19. As Chen Dandan finished speaking in one breath, the group of people around her, including the old man, fell into a dead silence at the same time. Now, almost all the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters in the arena had gathered around. Because of this, after they quietened down, the entire arena fell into a momentary silence. At this moment, even if a needle were to be thrown on the ground, the sound of the needle hitting the ground could be heard clearly. After a moment, a disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was the first to recover and gasp. That can't be someone from such a small place, reaching the connate stage at the age of 19? In the history of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the youngest connate stage adept was more than 30 years old. Sister Dandan, there is no need to lie to us. I also believe Sister Dandan's words. But it is still hard to imagine how someone from such a small place could have this level of practice at such a young age. Someone from such a small place, reaching the connate stage at the age of 19 unless he had some miraculous encounter. Even if it was a miraculous encounter left behind by an ultimate connate stage adept, it would be impossible for him to be like this, unless it's a primal core adept. As the group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters whispered amongst themselves, their gazes quickly fell upon the young man once more, their eyes filled with passion and greed. Who would not want a treasure left behind by a primal core adept? Even adepts who had attained the ultimate connate stage would be interested in the treasures left behind by the primal core adepts, because it could affect whether they could successfully attain the primal core stage and become a primal core adept. Primal core adept? Chun Dandan was in a daze for a moment. When she looked at the youth again, her gaze was filled with intense jealousy and hatred. At this moment, she completely understood. No wonder this martial invalid could suddenly cultivate and step into the Xiantian realm in just 2 years, becoming a cultivator of the Xiantian realm. It turned out that he had obtained the opportunity of becoming a primal core adept. Moreover, it must have been obtained not long before she left the Magnolia Guild in Qingshan Town. No wonder he was able to defeat Hong Yu, the level 1 adept of the Sunset Guild, with a single punch. It turns out that he had already obtained the opportunity left behind by the Primal Core adept then. Now, there was a trace of regret in Chen Danden's heart. If she had known earlier, she would have left the Magnolia Guild later, and perhaps she would have been able to snatch the opportunity left behind by the Primal Core adept from the youth. If I had snatched the opportunity left behind by the Primal Core adept from him, then, now, the one who would attain the Khanate stage would not be him, but me. At this thought, Chen Dandan looked at the youth again, her gaze filled with deep regret. She regretted that she had not snatched the opportunity left behind by the Primal Core adept from the youth before leaving the Magnolia Guild. The opportunity left behind by the Primal Core adept? Now, even the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, an early Khanate adept, looked at the youth with a look of greed in his eyes. He was now more than 80 years old, and with his martial talent, he had no hope of attaining the Primal Core stage. At most, he could live for another 20 or 30 years. However, if he could obtain the opportunity left behind by the Primal Core adept, he would have a chance of attaining the Primal Core stage and becoming a Primal Core adept, increasing his lifespan to 300 years. At this moment, he even wished that he could take the opportunity left behind by the Primal Core adept and make it his own. In a flash, the old man had an idea. Although he is also an early Khanate stage adept, he may not be a match for me. Even if he can fight me to a draw, I can discuss with him privately while we are fighting, and escape the Valley of the Medicine Masters with him before Second Elder arrives. As long as he is willing to share the legacy left behind by the Primal Core adept with me. The old man knew very well that even if the legacy left behind by the Primal Core adept was obtained by the Valley of the Medicine Masters, given his status in the valley, he might not be able to obtain it. Just like the first-grade techniques of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, he was not qualified to practice them. The first-grade techniques of the Valley of the Medicine Masters could only be practiced by those at the middle Khanate stage and above. Whoosh! With a shake of his legs, the old man seemed to have transformed into a ghost, speeding towards the youth like a shadow. His hands opened and closed, and his right hand formed a fist and punched out. From the old man's body, qi emanated more than a foot, and it was obviously more profound than the qi that Zhou Donghuang emitted. It was obvious that his level of practice was higher than Zhou Donghuang's. However, faced with the menacing old man, Zhou Donghuang only looked at him calmly. The qi in his body did not move, as if he had been scared silly. This Zhou Donghuang, why, just as many of the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters saw that the youth seemed to be in a daze, they were puzzled. Before they could finish their thoughts, they saw the old man appear in front of Zhou Donghuang, the qi in his fist exploding, and he punched towards the youth like a blue meteor streaking across the sky. Bang! Just as many people thought that Zhou Donghuang was about to be hit by the old man, accompanied by a loud bang, the qi under Zhou Donghuang's feet exploded by more than a foot, and with a shake of his legs, his whole body rose into the air, and in the blink of an eye, he was 2 meters above the ground. At this moment, the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was completely dumbfounded. Under their gaze, Zhou Donghuang seemed to know how to fly in the air, directly leaping 2 meters into the air, his whole body as light as a bird. First-grade swiftness technique. After the old man's fist had missed, his pupils contracted rapidly, and he subconsciously exclaimed in shock. And as soon as he spoke, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples, shocking the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. It's actually a first-grade swiftness technique? I was just thinking, what kind of miraculous technique is this? So it's a first-grade swiftness technique, no wonder. Although we in the Valley of the Medicine Masters have first-grade techniques, I don't think there are any swiftness techniques among them. Just as the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, including Chen Dandan, realized that Zhou Donghuang had demonstrated a first-grade swiftness technique, Zhou Donghuang, who had risen into the air by stepping on the cloud-scaling ladder, landed just behind the old man. In the instant that the old man quickly turned around, Zhou Donghuang had already calmly pushed out a palm. The vast qi, under the gaze of the crowd, was like waves stacking on top of one another, colliding with the fist that the old man had hurriedly thrown out. The two 1-foot-long streams of true qi collided with each other, and it was like a splash of bright fireworks. The next moment, no, accompanied by the old man's hurried scream, the waves of genuine qi that were like waves upon waves of the sea once again annihilated the genuine qi on his fist like breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Crack! The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. It was the arm that the old man had used to punch that had been directly snapped by Zhou Donghuang's palm, and the old man's shrill scream rang out just in time. Boom! Amidst the scream, the old man's body flew backwards and landed heavily on the ground, fresh blood spurting from his mouth. Elder Li lost? This Zhou Donghuang's qi is obviously not as thick as Elder Li's, but he was able to defeat Elder Li with one palm. Could the palm technique that he demonstrated also be a first-grade technique? Isn't it obvious? Among martial arts of the same level, swiftness techniques are the most valuable. This Zhou Donghuang even has a first-grade swiftness technique that the Valley of the Medicine Masters does not have, so what's so strange about him having other first-grade techniques? Looks like this is a technique left behind by a primal core adept. The old man's defeat was beyond the expectations of everyone present. However, when everyone looked at Zhou Donghuang again, their gazes became even more intense, as if they were looking at a rare treasure. At the same time, swoosh! Accompanied by the rapid sound of something breaking through the air, the gazes of everyone in the arena all landed on the distant sky. There, they saw a huge flying demon, speeding towards them at an extremely fast speed, and in the blink of an eye, it was in the sky above the arena. This flying beast was a giant green-gray rock. When it spread its wings, it had a wingspan of 10 meters. It was majestic and insufferably arrogant. And this giant rock was the other great consummation flying demon of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the Green Cloud Rock. At the same time, it was also the mount of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe. Father. At the same time, Chen Dandan raised her head to look at the figure on the back of the azure cloud rock that was circling at a low altitude, and her eyes reddened as she shouted loudly, "My daughter's cultivation has been crippled, you must avenge me. Go down." The middle-aged man standing on the back of the green cloud rock with his hands behind his back heard Chen Dandan's voice, and his already gloomy expression became even darker, as if it could drip water. Following his command, he kicked the back of the green cloud rock with both legs, and the green cloud rock immediately flapped its wings and slowly landed on the arena, kicking up a cloud of dust. End of this chapter. Chapter 148. After the green cloud rock landed on the arena, the middle-aged man standing with his hands clasped behind his back also leaped down, the 3-foot green glow beneath his feet supporting him as he landed steadily. 3 feet of qi was the hallmark of a middle Khanate stage adept. The middle-aged man was of medium build, and his face was as sharp as a knife. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. In addition, he had a hooked nose, and as he stood there, he stared at Zhou Donghuang from afar, giving Zhou Donghuang the feeling that he was being stared at by an eagle demon. Father! As soon as the middle-aged man landed, Chen Dandan went up to him, 2 streams of tears rolling down her cheek. "I'm useless, I've let down your painstaking efforts all this time. From today onwards I'm just a martial invalid, and I won't be able to bring you glory." Chen Dandan rushed forward and threw herself into the middle-aged man's arms, hugging him tightly. As she wept bitterly, her body twitched violently. The middle-aged man was Chen Dandan's biological father, the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe. Chen Tianhe held a high position in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and was responsible for supervising and communicating with 7 of the 16 countries of the East Valley, including Yunyang. Now, as Chen Tianhe's gaze shifted from the youth to the girl in his arms, the sharpness in his eyes disappeared, replaced by a look of deep love. Dandan, don't cry, let father take a look. As Chen Tianhe spoke, he examined the condition of Chen Dandan's body. When he confirmed that all the meridians in Chen Dandan's body had been destroyed, his expression darkened. At this moment, he also confirmed. His daughter's cultivation had indeed been crippled by someone. Moreover, all the meridians in her body had been destroyed, and there was no possibility of recovery. Even a primal core adept would be powerless. In that instant, Chen Tianhe's gaze pierced through the path that the crowd had parted to land on the youth, and it was filled with cold, murderous intent. You're the useless Zhou Donghuang that my daughter mentioned to me before? Chen Tianhe said coldly. You dared to destroy my daughter's practice today. If you don't give me an explanation, you can stay in the Valley of the Medicine Masters forever. As he spoke, the cold, murderous intent in Chen Tianhe's eyes intensified. Although Chen Tianhe was still a distance away from Zhou Donghuang. However, the entire martial arts practice field was completely silent. Although his voice wasn't loud, it still clearly spread throughout the entire martial arts practice field. Explanation. Faced with Chen Tianhe's murderous glare, Zhou Donghuang's expression was indifferent, and his tone was extremely calm. Who do you think you are? Do I need to give you an explanation for my actions? Arrogant. As the youth spoke, the same thought appeared in the minds of everyone present. They only felt that this youth was too arrogant. The person who had just arrived was not someone that Elderly from the Valley of the Medicine Masters could compare to. Elderly was only an early Khanate stage adept, and coupled with the fact that he had not practiced a first-grade technique, he had lost to the young man. And now, the person who had come was the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Not only was he a mid-Khanate stage adept, but he had also practiced the first-grade martial arts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Although the youth was strong, he was only an early Khanate stage adept, and was not a match for the second elder. Therefore, seeing the youth so arrogant in front of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, when they looked at the youth again, their eyes were filled with pity. Good, good, good. Seeing that not only was Zhou Donghuang's words arrogant, but his gaze was also filled with disdain, Chen Tianhe was so angry that he was speechless. This is the first time in my life that I, Chen Tianhe, have met someone as arrogant as you. When Chen Tianhe spoke again, his voice was even colder, as if the surrounding air had dropped several degrees, giving one the feeling that they had fallen into an ice cellar. Dandan, father will avenge you right now. When Chen Tianhe's gaze returned to Chen Dandan, he suppressed his anger and spoke gently. However, his tone was slightly hoarse from suppressing his emotions. Father! Chen Dandan raised her head. Her tear-stained face was covered in frost. Capture him, destroy his cultivation, and then hand him over to me. I want to cut him into 1,000 pieces. If he cooperates and hands over the primal chaos adept's treasure, I can let him die a quick death. If he doesn't cooperate, I will cut off every piece of flesh from his body, slice by slice, and feed it to the dogs in front of his eyes. Chen Dandan's tone was even colder than Chen Tianhe's, and once it spread, it was as if the entire arena had been plunged into a harsh winter. Dandan, you are so thoughtful. If you had not mentioned it, I would have forgotten that he had obtained the primal chaos adept's treasure. The disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had gone to report to Chen Tianhe had mentioned that Zhou Donghuang had obtained the opportunity left behind by the primal core adept, but when Chen Tianhe arrived and was completely enraged by Zhou Donghuang, he had completely forgotten about this matter. Now, hearing Chen Dandan mention it, he remembered. Since this youth had obtained the primal chaos adept's treasure, he naturally could not kill him directly. Even if he wanted to kill him, it would be after he handed over the treasure. Zhou Donghuang. At the same time, Chen Dandan left Chen Tianhe's embrace and looked at Zhou Donghuang with a cold gaze. She said coldly, I remember, on the day I left the Magnolia Guild, you told me that you hoped I would not regret what I did then. Am I right? Chen Dandan asked. That's right. Zhou Dongwang replied indifferently. Now that I think about it, you said that to me back then because you had already obtained the Primal Chaos Adept's treasure, right? Chen Dandan asked again, and without waiting for Zhou Dongwang to speak, she continued, if my support today was only that tiny preeminent Hong family, I might regret it. But now, I am the daughter of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. And my father, the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe, can easily kill you. As for what you said back then, let me answer you again. I, Chen Dandan, will never regret it. As she spoke, Chen Dandan's lips curled into a cold smile, and the hatred and murderous intent in her eyes intensified. Is that so? After hearing Chen Dandan's words, Zhou Dongwang smiled lightly and looked at Chen Tianhe. It looks like you have a lot of confidence in this father of yours. Of course. Chen Dandan raised her head like a proud peacock. My father is not only the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, but he is also a mid-Khanate stage adept. Don't think that just because you defeated elderly that no one in the Valley of the Medicine Masters can deal with you in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Although there are not many who can deal with you, there are still many. And my father is one of them. As Chen Dandan finished speaking, Chen Tianhe's feet had already begun to move as he walked towards the youth in the distance. 19 years old, early Khanate stage, if you had not obtained the Primal Chaos Adept's treasure, you would be considered an unparalleled genius among the martial arts geniuses. A Primal Chaos Adept's treasure left behind by a Primal Chaos Adept, and you, a person from the backwater of the country of Yunyang, have achieved so much. If it had been given to any disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, their achievements would definitely far surpass yours. For such a treasure to be given to you is really a waste of God's gift. If you know what's good for you, hand it over now. I can persuade my daughter to leave your corpse intact. As Chen Tianhe's indifferent words fell, he had already walked into the crowd and stood opposite the youth, glaring fiercely at him. Are you done? Zhou Dongwang raised his eyelids somewhat lazily and glanced at Chen Tianhe. With a shake of his right hand, a small metal ball rolled out from his sleeve. The small metal ball was in his hand, and Zhou Dongwang played with it casually as he looked at Chen Tianhe mockingly. Chen Tianhe, is it? Do you know that when your daughter Chen Dandan was 5 years old, she wandered the streets alone and had no one to rely on, almost starving to death? It was my mother who brought her home from the snowstorm and gave her food and clothes to wear. Do you know that when she was 9 years old, her chronic illness acted up? It was also my mother who braved the wind and rain to climb cliffs, narrowly escaping death, to gather herbs to treat her illness and save her life. Also, seeing that Zhou Dongwang was about to continue speaking, Chen Tianhe had already interrupted him coldly. Your mother helped my Dandan, most likely because she knew that she was my daughter, and wanted to curry favor with me, Chen Tianhe? Don't make your mother sound so noble, and don't use your mother's little contribution to slander Dandan as an ingrate, Chen Tianhe said coldly. Hearing Chen Tianhe's words, Zhou Dongwang was stunned for a moment, then quickly regained his composure, and could not help but laugh. In the past, I've only heard of the saying, like father like daughter. Today I, Zhou Dongwang, have learned something new. So, Chen Dandan's ingrate was all inherited from you. Zhou Dongwang's eyes flashed coldly. Cut the crap. Chen Tianhe laughed coldly, the coldness in his eyes rising. Since you have no intention of surrendering and handing over the opportunity left behind by the Primal Core Adept, I will personally capture you and hand you over to my daughter to deal with. Almost as soon as Chen Tianhe finished speaking, the qi all over his body exploded by more than 3 feet, and with a jolt of his body, it was as if he had transformed into a cannonball that emitted a blue glow, blasting towards Zhou Dongwang. The momentum was fierce, as if thousands of men and horses were charging forward. Humph! However, faced with the fierce momentum of Chen Tianhe, who had crossed half the distance in the blink of an eye, Zhou Donghuang only snorted coldly. In the next moment, on the right hand that held the small metal ball, a foot of qi raged. In an instant, the small metal ball, or more accurately, the sword sphere, with the injection of the foot of qi, transformed into a small metal sword that was surrounded by a cold light that could be seen with the naked eye. Swish! With a casual wave of Zhou Donghuang's right hand, the small metal sword sliced through the air, like a meteor that flashed across the night sky, whistling towards Chen Tianhe. End of this chapter. Chapter 149. Whoosh! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the middle-aged man who had been charging at the youth suddenly fell head first to the ground, his body scraping the ground for some distance before coming to a stop. The 3-foot green glow that had burst forth from his body was also extinguished, like a flame that had been extinguished. The scene that had happened to the disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had stood up for Chen Dandan was repeated, but this time, the shock was even greater, causing the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters to stare in shock and silence. But it was only when the small metal sword whistled back from afar, turning back into a sword sphere and returning to Zhou Donghuang's hand that the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters came to their senses and inhaled sharply. Second Elder is dead? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the middle-aged man who had mysteriously fallen head first to the ground lay motionless on the ground. Between his eyebrows, there was a hideous bloody hole from which fresh blood flowed like water. Evidently, this was a fatal wound. Just now, I think I heard the sound of a sword whistling for a brief moment. I heard it too. Didn't you all notice that the small metal sphere in Zhou Donghuang's hand suddenly turned into a small dagger-like sword that he threw at Second Elder? In my opinion, Second Elder was killed by that small metal sword. If that's really the case, isn't that small metal sword too fast? I actually didn't see anything. Following a wave of whispers, one gaze after another shifted from the corpse of the Valley of the Medicine Master's Second Elder, Chen Tianhe, to the youth. The youth was dressed in clothes whiter than snow, his left hand behind his back, and his right hand toying with a small metal sphere. Just now, many people had noticed the small metal sphere in the youth's hand, but they had never imagined that this small metal sphere could turn into a sword and kill the Valley of the Medicine Master's Second Elder in one blow. He, the youth who had come with Zhou Donghuang, the disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters Huang Mingfeng, saw Zhou Donghuang kill the Valley of the Medicine Master's Second Elder Chen Tianhe, and subconsciously took a few steps back, as if deeply afraid that others would think that he was in cahoots with Zhou Donghuang. He's finished. So far, Zhou Donghuang had displayed extraordinary power, and had even killed the Second Elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. However, this Second Elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was not the strongest person in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Not to mention the fact that the Valley of the Medicine Masters had several other mid-Khanate stage adepts. The Valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was a late Khanate stage adept and was widely recognized as the strongest in the surrounding regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley. Father! It was only when the gazes of the Valley of the Medicine Master's disciples and the Valley Elder, who had lost an arm, all fell upon the sword sphere in the youth's hand that Chen Dandan recovered from her shock. Dad! When she realized that her father, Chen Tianhe, had been killed by the young man, Chen Dandan let out a wail of grief. She then threw herself beside Chen Tianhe's corpse, her eyes filled with despair. Chen Dandan actually had no feelings for her biological father, who had suddenly appeared. If he had been a beggar, Chen Dandan would never have acknowledged him. It was precisely because he was the Second Elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and had a high status in the surrounding regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley that Chen Dandan had so readily acknowledged him as her father and behaved obediently and filially. Now, Chen Dandan's grief and anguish was not because of Chen Tianhe's death, but because she had suddenly lost such a powerful backer. With Chen Tianhe's death, even if the Valley of the Medicine Masters allowed Chen Dandan to remain in the valley for Chen Tianhe's sake, her status in the Valley of the Medicine Masters would plummet. Chen Dandan could not accept this reality. After confirming that Chen Tianhe was really dead, Chen Dandan suddenly raised her head and glared fiercely at the youth standing not far away. She gritted her teeth and said hatefully, "Zhou Donghuang, you dared to kill my father, the Valley of the Medicine Masters will not let you off." It was almost as if she was setting off Chen Dandan's words. Bang! Accompanied by a loud bang, the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, whose arm had been maimed by Zhou Donghuang, pulled out a small bamboo tube from his pocket with his right hand. Immediately, a signal flare shot into the air and exploded. This signal flare could only be used by the upper echelons of the Valley of the Medicine Masters of the Khanate stage and above, and no one had only one. This kind of signal flare could only be used when one's life was in danger. Although this elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was not in danger at the moment, seeing that the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had died, he could only use this method to inform the other Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Elder Li has released the signal flare. Today, this youth will not be able to escape even if he has wings. Once the signal flare is released, even if the Valley head hears or sees it, he will still rush over. At the same time that the group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were alarmed by the signal flare, all over the Valley of the Medicine Masters, whether they had heard the sound of the signal flare or seen the fireworks, were alarmed. Especially the upper echelons of the Valley of the Medicine Masters of the Khanate stage and above. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. From the 4 observation towers around the valley, where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, 4 huge figures whizzed out, heading straight for the place where the signal flare had exploded. It's the training grounds. The 4 huge figures were 4 flying demons, and judging from their huge size and speed, they were all great consummation flying demons of the Qi gathering. On the backs of these 4 flying demons stood either a middle-aged man or an old man. Now all 4 of them had exceptionally sharp eyes, staring fixedly at the training grounds in the middle of the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located. At the same time, in various parts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, figures were rushing out, some riding demons, some walking quickly. These people, without exception, were all Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The signal flare just now had been released by the upper echelons of the Valley of the Medicine Masters of the Khanate stage and above, and it would be useless for anyone below the Khanate stage to go. Therefore, now, the people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who were rushing to the training grounds were all Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. In the training grounds, Chen Dandan stared hatefully at the youth, her cold gaze as sharp as a sword, as if she could not wait to cut the youth into 1,000 pieces. "Zhou Donghuang, if you destroy me today, don't even think of living," Chen Dandan said coldly. "Is that so?" Hearing Chen Dandan's words, Zhou Donghuang smiled faintly, his expression non-committal. And when the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters saw this, they were puzzled. This youth, not only is he not running now, but he also looks so confident. Could it be that he has something up his sleeves, that he is not afraid of the Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters? In my opinion, he doesn't know the strength of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Does he really think that just because he used that hidden weapon to kill Second Elder, he is invincible in the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Naive. Just now, if not for his sneak attack and Second Elder's carelessness and lack of defense, he might not have succeeded. Naturally, he is only an early Khanate stage adept, and Second Elder is a late Khanate stage adept. Although many of the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were puzzled by the youth's apparent confidence, most of them felt that the youth did not know his own limits. Who released the signal flare? Accompanied by a swift sound that pierced through the air, an old but resonant voice came from behind a huge gray eagle. It was an old man dressed in gray. It's the thunder-feathered eagle. Elder Mo is here. Although Elder Mo is also an early Khanate stage adept, he is close to the middle Khanate stage, and his power is much stronger than Elder Li's. Many of the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters immediately recognized the gray eagle and the old man on its back, who had arrived at the arena first. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. After the thunder-feathered eagle, another 3 huge flying beasts arrived, and on each of their backs stood a person. The elders on duty at the observation tower are all here. Now, the 4 elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had arrived first were the ones on duty at the 4 observation posts in the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located. They were the first to discover the signal flare and had rushed over immediately. All 4 of them were early Khanate stage adepts, and none of them were weaker than Elder Li, whose arm had been crippled by the youth. Second elder? However, before Elder Li had time to speak, the 4 elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters discovered Chen Tianhe's body at the same time, and their expressions changed instantly. Chen Tianhe was the 2nd elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, a middle Khanate stage adept. In terms of power, even if the 4 of them attacked together, they would still be no match for Chen Tianhe. Bang, 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 bang. After the 4 elders on duty at the observation posts discovered Chen Tianhe's death, they did not hesitate and each released the only signal flare they had on them. Instantly, the entire Valley of the Medicine Masters was alarmed. The signal flare of the 5 Khanate stage adepts and above in the Valley of the Medicine Masters sounded one after another, exploding in the air above the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located. Furthermore, they all sounded in the air above the arena. My goodness! What's going on? 5 Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters are in danger at the arena? This signal flare seems to only be released when their lives are in danger, right? Let's go. Let's go take a look. Such a big commotion, even the head elder, the 2 guardians, and the valley chief must have been alarmed? 5 signal flare exploded in the air one after another, and at the same time as the brilliant fireworks blossomed, the entire Valley of the Medicine Masters became lively. At this moment, even the adepts below the Khanate stage in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, driven by their curiosity, all headed in the direction of the arena. Of course, they were just there to join in the fun. What a joke! If even 5 Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had to send out a signal flare for help, how could they help solve such a problem? End of this chapter. Chapter 150. The Valley of the Medicine Masters. The Training Grounds. Since the establishment of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the training grounds had never been as crowded as it was today. All the people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, whether they were elders or disciples, were all gathered there. There were even a few elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters riding on flying beasts that came from all directions, circling around the outer perimeter of the arena. It was not that they did not want to go in. It was because there were a few great consummation flying demons on the training grounds, and their flying demons were of a lower level of practice, and did not dare to approach due to the power of those flying demons. Why don't we go down and go up to the training grounds ourselves? A disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters suggested on one of the flying demons. I'm not going. If you want to go, you go. Can't you see there are so many people on the training grounds? If you go up, I'm afraid you won't even be able to squeeze in. The Medicine King Valley disciple on the other flying beast shook his head. I think so too. Let's just watch from afar from here. At least we can see what's going on inside. If we go down to the training grounds, I'm afraid we'll only be able to see heads. That person in white, I heard he's a 19-year-old young man. That one? I can't see his face clearly, but since they say he's 19, he must really be 19. I heard he was originally from a small place in the country of Yunyang, but because he obtained a treasure left behind by a primal core adept, he entered the early Khanate stage at this age, and he even used a very strange hidden weapon to kill the second elder of the middle Khanate stage. A 19-year-old Khanate stage adept, what a pity. Today, he will definitely die. The gathered people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters all felt that the young man in white who had killed their second elder, Chun Tianhe, on the training grounds would definitely die today. On the training grounds, the young man in white stood there, his left hand behind his back and his right hand playing with a small metal ball. Around him, there was already a group of old and middle-aged men, all of whom were elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had entered the Khanate stage, staring at him fiercely. However, although the group surrounded the young man, no one made a move, quietly waiting for something. In the circle formed by the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, besides the young man, there was also a young girl. The young girl was lying beside a corpse, glaring at the young man with bloodthirsty hatred. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something tearing through the air came from high up in the sky, attracting the attention of many people. It's the Great Elder! The Great Elder is here! Accompanied by a burst of exclamations, a huge blue-feathered eagle glided over the martial arts field at a low altitude, and then a light figure jumped down from the eagle's back. The 3 feet of green light wreaked havoc as the newcomer landed steadily on the ground, right in the middle of the circle of elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. He then revealed himself in full view of the crowd. It was a middle-aged woman dressed in a light gray robe. Although she had a head full of white hair, she looked like a middle-aged woman. With white hair and a youthful face, nothing could surpass this. Great Elder! Great Elder! As soon as the white-haired woman appeared, the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who had formed a circle around her, bowed to her respectfully. This woman was the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Yumei-chin. Yumei-chin was now nearly 90 years old. In terms of seniority, even the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Suemo, had to address her as uncle. Great Elder! Seeing Yumei-chin appear, Chen Dandan immediately rushed forward and knelt on the ground, weeping bitterly. My father has made countless contributions to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and now he has been killed by someone who trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters. You and the Valley of the Medicine Masters must avenge my father. Rise! Yumei-chin stepped forward and bowed to Chen Dandan, her old voice full of energy. No matter who it is, the Valley of the Medicine Masters will not let him off for killing the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. As soon as she finished speaking, Yumei-chin's gaze fell on the youth not far away, and her originally cloudy eyes suddenly shone with a bright light. Of course, there was also a hint of fear in the depths of her eyes. After all, the person who had been killed, Chun Tianhe, was the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and a mid-Khanate stage adept like her. Although he was not as strong as she was, he was not far off. On the way here, she had met the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had come to look for her, and she had already completely understood the ins and outs of the matter. The youth before her was only 16 years old, and he had come from a small place in the country of Yunyang. It was suspected that he had obtained an opportunity left behind by a primal core adept, and that was how he had reached the early Khanate stage. That small metal ball can transform into a sword? After a moment, Yumei-chin's gaze fell on the small metal ball that the youth was playing with in his right hand. Could it be a sword sphere? As someone who was even more senior than Valley Lord Suemo in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Yumei-chin, as the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, was no less knowledgeable than even Valley Lord Suemo. If it really is a sword sphere in the entire Valley of the Medicine Masters, I'm afraid only the Valley Lord alone can defeat him. Thinking back to the records of a sword sphere that she had read in an ancient book, Yumei-chin's eyes revealed a strong sense of fear. This was not the hidden weapon that the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had mentioned at all, but a sword sphere that only adepts of the primal core stage and above could produce. In the hands of an early Khanate stage adept, a sword sphere could easily kill a middle Khanate stage adept, and even a late Khanate stage adept would be hard-pressed to survive if he was not prepared. Little fellow. Yu Meiqin looked at Zhou Donghuang and said in a low voice, "To be able to obtain an opportunity left behind by a primal core adept is your good fortune. However, you have trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters and killed our second elder, Chen Tianhe. Isn't that a little too much?" "Too much?" Zhou Donghuang smiled indifferently, and then his gaze fell on the young girl beside Yu Meiqin. "I have come here today only for Chen Dandan. Some people want to stand up for her and attack me. Do you think I should just let myself be slaughtered? What a joke." At this point, the corner of Zhou Donghuang's mouth turned up in a mocking smile. "She has already successfully sent her father on his way. I advise you, at your age, it's best not to meddle in other people's business, lest you follow in her father's footsteps." As he said this, Zhou Donghuang's eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. Faced with Zhou Donghuang's threat, Yu Meiqin's expression immediately darkened. Being threatened by a youth who was younger than her great-grandson made her extremely embarrassed and angry. If not for her fear of the sword sphere in the youth's hand, she would have attacked long ago. "Zhou Donghuang, how dare you threaten the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Are you tired of living?" Just now, before Yu Meiqin had appeared, Chen Dandan had not dared to provoke the youth too much, deeply afraid that he would kill her. Now that Yu Meiqin was here, Chen Dandan seemed to have more confidence. "The head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters?" Zhou Donghuang shook his head and smiled indifferently. "Not just the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Today, even if the Valley Lord of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was here, he would have to kneel before me. How dare you? How dare you?" Almost as soon as Zhou Donghuang's words fell, not only Yu Meiqin, the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, was aghast, but even the group of elders surrounding Zhou Donghuang were aghast, and began to shout angrily. The Valley Lord of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was the most respected person in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. In the Valley of the Medicine Masters, his position was no different from that of an emperor, high above and inviolable. And now, the youth before them had actually dared to insult the Valley Lord of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. How could they tolerate this? Such arrogance! What an insolent youth! Just as Yu Meiqin and the other elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were enraged, two elderly voices sounded from the sky, and then a huge flying beast flew past at a low altitude, stirring up gusts of wind. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, two figures jumped down from the back of the flying demonic beast. Two dazzling 3-feet-long streaks of azure light whistled out from under their feet in a timely manner, supporting the two of them to land steadily on the ground. The two of them landed not far from Yu Meiqin. "Greetings, left guardian, right guardian. Greetings, left guardian." As the two of them appeared, the group of elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters withdrew their angry gazes from the youth and bowed respectfully to the newcomers. "Meiqin, greetings, senior brothers." At this moment, even Yu Meiqin, the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, bowed to the two of them. The two people who had just arrived were two silver-haired old men, one fat and one skinny. The fat man was the same as Yu Meiqin. He also had white hair and a youthful complexion. His chubby face was rosy and glowing. As for the thin one, his face was old, and one could tell at a glance that he was close to 100 years old. In fact, the two of them were only a few years apart in age, both in their 90s, and were the two oldest people in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. In terms of seniority, they were both uncles to the Valley Lord, Su Mo. The fat old man was the left guardian, Wang Tao. The thin old man was the right guardian, Yu Wei. Both of them were mid-Khanate stage adepts, infinitely close to the late Khanate stage, and could enter the late Khanate stage at any time or never in their lives. In the Valley of the Medicine Masters, their strength was second only to the Valley Lord, Su Mo, and they were even stronger than head elder Yu Meiqin. "Even the left and right guardians are here?" Head Elder, left and right guardians are here, now. Of all the mid-Khanate stage adepts in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, only the Valley Lord and Third Elder are not here, right? Third Elder has been away recently, and will definitely not be able to make it. Only the Valley Lord is left. Head Elder and the 2 guardians are here. Even if the Valley Lord is not here, that youth is destined to be captured. Outside, the crowd of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, without exception, all felt that the youth was finished. Zhou Donghuang, these 2 are the guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. You, how dare you humiliate the Valley Lord in front of Head Elder and the 2 guardians? I advise you to kneel and beg for mercy. Seeing that the 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had arrived, Chen Dandan's confidence seemed to increase, and she looked coldly at Zhou Donghuang, laughing coldly. Chapter 151. However, Zhou Donghuang ignored Chen Dandan's taunts and instead looked mockingly at the 2 old men who had just arrived. The 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were second only to the Valley Lord, Suemo. As for Head Elder Yu Meichin of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Zhou Donghuang did not look at her again because he had already noticed that Yu Meichin had most likely recognized the sword sphere in his hand. This kid, just as the 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters sensed Zhou Donghuang's mocking gaze, their faces darkened and their eyes filled with murderous intent. They took a step forward as if ready to strike at any moment. Senior brothers. Yu Meichin took 2 steps forward and walked up to the 2 old men. She lowered her voice and said to them, "The small metal ball in Zhou Donghuang's hand must be the legendary sword sphere that only adepts of the primal core stage and above can make." The 2 old men had not been contacted by the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. They had heard the sound of the signal flare and had come over, so they did not know exactly what had happened. However, in the process of being brought over by the flying demon, they had heard many elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters around the arena talk about how the 2nd elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Chen Tianhe, had been killed by the youth. Of course, what they had heard was that the youth had used a hidden weapon to ambush the defenseless Chen Tianhe, and that was how he had managed to kill him. Then, they had flown into the air above the arena and heard the youth's humiliating and blasphemous words about the Valley Lord. It was also at that moment that the rage in their hearts burned. Now, seeing the youth looking at them with a mocking gaze, how could they tolerate it? Sword sphere. Hearing Yu Meichin's reminder, their eyes narrowed and their expressions changed. As the 2 oldest people in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, they naturally knew what a sword sphere was. It was a legendary item, a treasure that only adepts of the primal core stage and above could make. An early Khanate adept with a sword sphere could easily kill a middle Khanate adept. Even a late Khanate adept, if unprepared, would most likely fall at the hands of an early Khanate adept who possessed a sword sphere and knew how to use it. He knows how to use a sword sphere? The fat old man, Wang Tao, the left sentinel of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, asked in a low voice. 2nd elder died under the sword formed by his sword orb. What do you think? Yu Meichin smiled bitterly. So, the hidden weapon they were talking about earlier was the sword sphere. What sneak attack! Why would an early Khanate adept who possesses a sword sphere and knows how to use it need a sneak attack to kill a middle Khanate adept? The skinny old man, right guardian Yu Wei of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, had an ugly expression on his face. At this moment, both of them had completely given up on the idea of fighting the young man. What a joke! Not only did this youth possess a sword pellet, but he also knew how to use it. Even if they went up against him, they were destined to die. Unless their cultivation had stepped into the late stage of the Xiantian realm, they might be able to defeat or even kill their opponents if they were careful and knew how to use the sword orb. What? You recognize this sword sphere? Seeing the 2 old men's gazes land on the sword sphere with fear, Zhou Donghuang took a deep look at them and pretended to be surprised as he asked. Looks like you have indeed obtained a treasure left behind by a primal core adept. Otherwise, you would not be able to possess a sword sphere that only adepts of the primal core stage and above can produce. Yu Meiqin said in a low voice. Zhou Donghuang had been misunderstood as having obtained a treasure left behind by a primal core adept, and this was not the first time he had heard Yu Meiqin's words. He did not even think of explaining. Of course, the person in front of him was not worthy of Zhou Donghuang's explanation. Sister Yu, why is the valley head not here yet? Left Protector Wang Tao asked Yu Meiqin. I'm not sure. Normally, the valley head should be here by now. Yu Meiqin shook her head, and then her eyes flashed as she said softly, I'll leave for a while to find the valley head. Brothers, please keep an eye on this Zhou Donghuang. If you don't have to, try not to fight with him. The sword sphere in his hand is too strange. As Yu Meiqin finished speaking, she saw Wang Tao and Yu Wei nod their heads, and then she took out a leaf from her pocket and blew on it. As the sound rang out, Yu Meiqin's flying beast mount once again flew through the air and brought Yu Meiqin away from the arena, heading straight for the residence of Su Mo, the valley head of the Medicine Masters. On the way, Yu Meiqin met an elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters riding a flying beast from the direction of Su Mo's residence. Elder Yuan, you went to find the valley head? Head Elder. When Elder Yuan saw Yu Meiqin, he respectfully greeted her and bitterly smiled. I went to find the Valley Master, but he didn't respond. He should be fully immersed in cultivation. I thought that you and the two guardians should be able to solve the problem that the Valley of the Medicine Masters is currently facing, so I did not disturb the Valley Head. Hearing Elder Yuan's words, Yu Meiqin smiled bitterly. That person, the two guardians and I are unable to deal with. As soon as she finished speaking, under the shocked gaze of Elder Yuan, Yu Meiqin rode on her flying beast and flew off into the distance. In the blink of an eye, she landed at the residence of Su Mo, the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters. That youth, who is he? After Yu Meiqin left, Elder Yuan's eyes were filled with disbelief. Even Head Elder and the two guardians are unable to deal with him? The arena. As Yu Meiqin left, there were initially only a few voices discussing the sword sphere that the youth had mentioned. This was because only a few elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had heard of the sword sphere. However, after a while, the meaning of the sword sphere spread throughout the entire arena, so that everyone in the Valley of the Medicine Masters knew what the sword sphere was. The sword sphere, a weapon refined by adepts of the primal core stage and above? If a Khanate stage adept knows how to use the sword sphere, he can use it to easily kill an opponent of a higher level? That is to say, this Zhou Donghuang with the sword sphere could easily kill Head Elder and the two guardians? No wonder the second elder of the middle Khanate stage was killed by him with one strike. It turns out that the sword sphere in his hand is a treasure left behind by a primal core adept. Its power is amazing. There was an uproar in the arena. At the same time, the group of elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters present also realized that the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had most likely left to look for the Valley Lord. Based on the current situation, if the Valley head did not appear, no one in the Valley of the Medicine Masters would be a match for this youth. Furthermore, if the Valley head was careless, and the youth used the sword sphere to launch a sneak attack, there was a high chance that the Valley head would be killed. However, now that they all knew that the youth had the sword sphere, their Valley head would definitely not be careless. At this thought, they all felt reassured. Sword sphere? At the same time, Chen Dandan also found out how her father, Chen Tianhe, had died, and at the same time, understood why Head Elder and the two guardians had not acted against Zhou Donghuang. It turned out that everything was because of the sword sphere in Zhou Donghuang's hand. Damn it! What did he do to obtain the opportunity left behind by a primal core adept and enter the Khanate stage in just 2 short years, and he even obtained a treasure like the sword sphere? At this moment, Chen Dandan's heart was filled with regret. Of course, it was not because she had betrayed her adoptive mother, Lin Lan, but because she had not stayed at the Magnolia Guild for a while longer and taken away the opportunity and sword sphere that Zhou Donghuang had obtained from the Primal Core Adept before leaving. If I had obtained everything left behind by the Primal Core Adept, Zhou Donghuang's current achievements would be my achievements, and I might even be able to go even higher and further than this good-for-nothing. Chen Dandan was filled with regret. However, this Zhou Donghuang is also an idiot. Now, he knows that Head Elder has gone to find the Valley Head, but he still hasn't left. When the Valley Head arrives, I'll see how he leaves. Now, on one hand, Chen Dandan felt that the youth was stupid and did not know how to leave the valley before the Valley Head arrived, but on the other hand, she hoped that the youth would not leave and wait for the Valley Head to deal with him. The Valley Head is a late Khanate stage adept. Even if this Zhou Donghuang has the sword sphere and the Valley Head is prepared, he is still no match for the Valley Head. Even though Chen Dandan had yet to meet the Valley Head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, it did not affect her confidence in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who had a high and lofty status. Zhou Donghuang, the Valley Head can still deal with you, do not have the ability to make me, Chen Dandan, regret betraying that B***tch Lin Lan. Chen Dandan stared coldly at Zhou Donghuang. You ruined my life, killed my father today, you have fallen at the hands of the Valley Head. In the future, I will definitely get my father's senior brothers to kill that B***tch Lin Lan, and kill everyone related to her. Only then can the hatred in my heart be appeased. Of course, Chen Dandan did not dare to say these words aloud. She only dared to swear in her heart, because she was also worried that Zhou Donghuang would kill her in a fit of rage. After all, no one present could deal with Zhou Donghuang. This Zhou Donghuang, he still hasn't left? Is he crazy? If I were him, knowing that the Valley Head is coming, I would have run as far as I could. He probably knows that he can't run, so he wants to stay and negotiate with the Valley Head. I also think that he should be waiting for the Valley Head to come and negotiate, otherwise, even if he doesn't leave, there is no need for him to just stand there like a fool. He could totally use the sword sphere in his hand to kill as many people as he can before the Valley Head arrives. Shu, lower your voice. If he hears your warning and attacks us, you will regret it. Just as many of the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were whispering. The Valley Head is here. In the air outside the training grounds, an elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who was standing on the back of a flying beast, looked at the middle-aged man on the back of a huge flying beast flying towards them from afar. His eyes lit up as he shouted with all his might. His voice was so loud that it even drowned out the whispers in the training ground.